technically we don't have to be on Zoom.
No.
I just don't know.
Comes so piecemeal to understand why, but like the agenda's in one, the PLSP's in another, and then the Zoom's in another, and it's the majority of them are from Mary, so
And I just tried to tell Kathy, I was like, I wish that she would just like
in the subject, yeah.
and then, you know, all the other house. What is that?
I will.
I love it. We're behind. I was talking about you the other day. We was looking for a graduation speaker. How old are you? Graduation speaker. Let's see if they got somebody there.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So glad to see all of you here this morning on this cold, chilly day. But the sun is supposed to be out later today, so we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. Before we start our meeting, we're going to go ahead and start with a moment of silence and just be thinking about the children of Arkansas and really why we're here today. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to start. I know Mr. Oliva has got some really great announcements to make this morning.
Yes. So our first recognition is going to be to introduce to our board the 2025 Arkansas Teacher of the Year. So I'm going to turn it over to Capri, if I may, and let her begin the festivities.
Good morning. Good morning. So Capri Salam, I'm the Arkansas Teacher of the Year coordinator. And today I have the distinct honor and privilege of welcoming and celebrating and introducing a dedicated fourth grade math and science teacher at Chenal Elementary, so in the Pulaski County Special School District. She is the 2025 Arkansas Teacher of the Year, and she is a 25-year veteran educator. I know she doesn't even look 25, so how can she be teaching for 25, you know? But Ms. Wilcoxon has made a lasting impact on her students. Her students consistently rank in the top 3% on state standardized assessments, and her learning through real-world problem-solving activities is really what engages her students in the classroom. And I've actually seen her in action. I've watched her teach, and I felt like I was falling in love with math all over again, which really says something because math is not my strong suit. But someone posed a question to her that really stuck with me. Her best common practices, that academic vocabulary that she constantly revisits every single time, and she calls it her version of looping. And so I really thought that was so special about her to really set the foundation for her students. So she will begin her year of service with the state on July 1st. And so you all know that she'll be here on the board as a non-voting member for the next year. And my hope as her coordinator is to really see her get into the classrooms and provide professional development to math teachers all across the state on how they can implement some of those same best practices. She is a native of Dumas, and so I had to plug that. She's taught both in Arkansas and Louisiana, and she has done some of her coursework at that other university in Louisiana. And since we're in Arkansas, I won't, mention that right now, but it is my pleasure to introduce to you all our 2025 Arkansas Teacher of the Year, Jeannie Wilcoxon.
Good morning, members of the Arkansas Board of Education. I'm truly honored and humbled to stand before you today as the Arkansas Teacher of the Year. This recognition is not just about me. It reflects the dedication, passion, hard work of my incredible students, supportive colleagues, and the entire school community. I am grateful for this opportunity to serve in this capacity, and I commit to using this platform to continue advocating for education across the state. Together, we can create a future where every child has the resources, support, and opportunity to reach their fullest potential. Thank you so much for this incredible honor and for your ongoing commitment to education in our state.
So if I want to add, we want to welcome Ms. Wilcoxon to our board. I know she's going to be a wonderful addition, and like many of the teachers we have in the great state of Arkansas, I've had an opportunity to visit her classroom and talk to her students, and it didn't take long being in her classroom to realize that she is truly distinguished and a master educator. And for her to be able to use her platform and support some of our academic initiatives statewide is something that we should honor and cherish. And I know especially our math team has got their pencils out and ready to book you up and have you be a mentor to educators across the state. So we're really thrilled and really honored to have you join the team, and it's going to be it's a wonderful year. And I always tell everybody it's really easy for me to remember Ms. Wilcoxon's last name, because when we did the announcement for Teacher of the Year, we had all the students in the elementary school come to an assembly, and it was a surprise, and Governor Sanders was there, and we made that announcement. And when you have probably 500 or so young elementary students all screaming at the same time, "Miss Wilcoxon," it was truly a remarkable event. And it's like the easiest thing for me to remember now, because she is truly a rock star, and you can just see that with the students and with the school. So welcome.
Yes, we welcome you. I know you said it was an honor for you to be here, but it's an honor for us that you are here, and we really look forward to your serving on this board and helping the board as well bring ideas and your thoughts to our issues that come before us. So thank you. I think we'd like to get a picture.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has a comment.
Real quick, I just want to let you know, I know exactly what you're going through right now, what you're feeling inside, where you really don't know what the next year provides. I just want to say this, you're going to find yourself in rooms with people you never thought you would be in there with. You're going to find yourself in conversations that you never thought you would have. And don't for a second think you don't belong in those conversations and in those rooms, because you belong there based on the work that you've done with your kids. And so don't ever let the imposter syndrome start setting in. You'll hear about that here in a couple of days in California. Just you belong wherever you end up over the next year, you belong there. And enjoy the ride.
She's gonna be awesome. She's so good.
It's great. I have a math teacher right now.
She's. This is Ross.
Can you introduce Ross? Next, we're going to hear from Mr. White, Ross White.
Well, good morning. Ross White, Director for the Division of Career and Technical Education. So happy Career and Technical Education Month. If you didn't already know, February is Career and Technical Education Month. So we can't go without celebrating that. So I'm going to read you a lot of information, and then we have a short little video. So bear with me as I go through this. So Career and Technical Education Month is a time to celebrate, reflect, and build awareness around career and technical education in our communities, locally, regionally, state, and as a nation. To provide you a little bit of a picture of what career and technical education looks like in the state of Arkansas, we've got some statistics for you today. So currently in Arkansas, we have 313,702 students enrolled in grades 5 through 12 in a career and technical education course this semester. These courses are offered on all of our campuses across the state, in addition to our 31 secondary career centers that we offer with our post-secondary partners. Last year in career and technical education, we had 40,680 industry-recognized certifications that were earned through coursework by our students. In addition, we had 1,781 students who earned a certificate of proficiency or technical certificate through their post-secondary partner, as well as some additional associate degrees, all prior to high school graduation, and a total of 36,347 college credit hours earned through career and technical education coursework. This year, we currently have 8,754 students who are enrolled in what we call work-based learning. And work-based learning is that opportunity for students to work while in high school. And so part of their day is going to work with an employer in business and industry. And they are earning high school credit for that, but at the same time getting that hands-on experience. And then the last piece is our career and technical student organizations, and we've had a lot of those students come before you before. But in the state of Arkansas, we have 8 career and technical student organizations, so those make up FFA, FBLA, DECA, HOSA, TSA, Skills USA, FCCLA, and Ed Rising, so the alphabet soup, as I like to call them. But they all serve a great purpose, and their goal is to build the skills that we're learning in our classes and provide our students opportunity to connect with business and industry through competition and leadership opportunities. And so I always say career and technical education is thriving in the state of Arkansas and furthering our students towards enlistment, enrollment, and employment, and we're excited for that. So I'm going to read you the proclamation that Governor Huckabee Sanders signed on February 1st, and I'll read you that, and then we'll show you this video. So whereas career and technical education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness, whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase student engagement and achievement, whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework in pursuit of established programs of study and career pathways, whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, including healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, and information technology. Whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education, leading to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials, whereas ensuring that employers have access to the qualified workforce is a crucial step in ensuring productivity among the business and industry communities, as well as continued American economic growth and global competitiveness. And whereas a core pillar of the education reform law Arkansas Learns is readiness, placing a stronger emphasis on policies that prepare our kids for the workforce, not a lifetime of government dependency. So whereas Career and Technical Education Month is the state of Arkansas for the month of February. I believe we've got a video.
So before we start the video, I just want to add and commend Ross and his team. If you remember when one of the kind of big tenets of Arkansas Learns was making sure that we empowered families and provided multiple pathways for students, because we know not every student is on the highway from K-12 to university, and we need to build a system with many exit ramps and on-ramps. And I always like to remind the board, as we're engaging in this work and getting ready to go into maybe a deeper level of how can we provide more opportunities for our students and families, but we had a task with Arkansas Learns with requiring every high school to not only have 3 career and technical education programs that led to a certification where a student could become a program completer, but one of those programs had to be on the newly developed statewide high skill, high demand, high occupancy list. So that was a huge lift and a lot of work, and it just shows the passion and dedication around this work, not only with the Division of Career and Technical Education, but the folks that are leading this work and have the boots on the ground to realize that this is important, and we just want to commend our leaders and our teachers for making that happen. That requirement went into place to start this school year, and 100% of our high schools met that requirement. So this is something that we are embracing as a state and going to continue to be a national leader on. So as we proclaim Career and Technical Education Month, it's also an opportunity to reflect on the journey that we've been on and take a time to celebrate where we've been, but know we still got a lot more work to do.
Yep, we do. A lot more.
Maybe after the video.
Hello, I'm the 2024 Arkansas Teacher of the Year, Bo McCaslin, and here at the state capitol, we are kicking off CTE Month, celebrating CTE Day at the Capitol. Behind me are schools from all across the state of Arkansas sharing their CTE stories. Let's go take a look.
So, career and technical education is really all of our careers. Sometimes people default back to VOTEC and think, maybe if they were in school 20 years ago, what it looked like. But, our focus is on preparing students for careers, and that is any career that exists out there.
When I was appointed to the State Board of Education, that was a very, very pivotal moment for me, because I knew then CTE is at highest value. And I love the directive of the Learns legislation for career readiness.
So I grew up on a farm, and with my grandparents and my dad and all of my family being really active in agriculture, when I got into high school and I saw that there were classes for agriculture, I immediately knew that that was the path that I wanted to take.
So my plan originally was for the healthcare, and DECA has helped me combine both of those two together. So I've been in branding for merchandise for Mercy, which is a hospital, and I've been in just all the business parts, and I've learned to combine my passions together. and I've been looking at businesses in the medical field. So that's how ADECA and CTE has helped me.
Throughout this year, I have learned a great deal of skills and learned how to communicate with others. And it has given me the confidence and to be able to lead others, but given me the confidence in myself that I have potential and I can live a career of success and fulfillment.
I just truly believe that students need that opportunity to be involved in career and technical education. Regardless of the program and pathway, I think that it's extremely important to get them exposed so that they can find their passions, and then once they go on to that next step after high school, they can, get a job, or they're going on to secondary education, or they're enlisting in the military, whatever that looks like. But I think that giving him those opportunities is extremely important.
Just one question. Several years ago, there was discussion about some of the industries. They were hesitant to have a student less than 18 on their premises because of liability. Is that still an issue? Or?
We see it in pockets, but I will say, really, since the pandemic, it has been a world change in work-based learning. Most of them now are like, we need people, and we need people who will show up and be there. So we've seen a tremendous increase
CTE classes really for all
students being able to engage in work-based learning opportunities. I know from my prior experience in the classroom, when I was in a district, I was in charge of our internship program, and we had about 30 to 50 kids that kind of fluctuated from year to year, and it was kind of that constant conversation we had to have with the employer, kind of had to be the squeaky wheel. Usually we made it through. There are a few that just have age restrictions based off the industry. Manufacturing is a great example.
Very specific knowledge for all students.
Really big
Unlike traditional academic.
But a lot of times they're able to not be in the plant side of it on the floor, but maybe in an office area or different pieces. But we've definitely seen the number increase tremendously, and it's kind of a nationwide conversation around work-based learning right now. If you look at anything around career and technical education, you'll see it touching it. And we can see it continue to grow in our state, especially around youth apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships, more and more conversation. And so I continue to expect that number to grow for us.
Do we have any further questions or comments? We have two board members online this morning on Zoom, Dr. Sarah Moore, who is our chair, but she is joining us by Zoom, and Mr. Randy Henderson. Do either one of you have questions for Mr. White?
I really don't have any questions. I just want to say that I really enjoyed that opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of CTE. It comes at no secret that I'm very passionate about CTE. So I'm very happy to share that. I'm glad that things are going in the direction that it's going in with the state of Arkansas.
Dr. Moore, did you have a comment or question?
No, thank you for asking. Great to see you all. Great job, Ross.
Well, great work. We appreciate you coming and sharing that information with us. So
thank you.
Keep it up. Do we have any changes to our agenda this morning? Anything we need to pull and look at deeper? Mr. Henderson, Dr. Moore? No. Okay. We'll proceed then with our agenda.
No, I don't have anything.
Go ahead. Okay. Thank you. Ms. James?
Our first review hearing is Candace Roberson. It is case number 24-135. The educator is here with her attorney. This is one that she objected to the findings of the evidentiary hearing that was back in July, and she has requested a review. And just a quick overview of the procedures. Anyone who is going to be speaking that is not an attorney would need to be sworn in. The educator will have 10 minutes to present her objections, and then the PLSB will have 10 minutes to present our argument. Thank you.
So anyone testing will need to, I need to swear you in?
The educator is here if you would like to swear her in. I don't anticipate her testifying, but we can go ahead and swear her in. She's right here.
Do you you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I need to swear you in as well, the attorney.
Okay.
No? No? No. Okay. You have 10 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you kindly for hearing us out this morning. My name is Cord Cantrell. I'm an attorney in Searcy. I represent Ms. Roberson this morning. And I just want to begin a little bit by telling you about her qualifications as to why we're here. Ms. Roberson is a 10-year educator with the state of Arkansas. She has a master's degree in educational leadership. She's certified pre-K through 4th grade teacher. She's certified in district leadership. She's a certified reading interventionist, and she has a dyslexia therapist endorsement. She is a highly qualified educator. The facts that lead up to this event are somewhat unfortunate. Ms. Roberson is a 4.5-year educator at McCrory School District over in East Arkansas. And during that time, she served as the reading interventionist at the high school. She worked with 4 or 5 students at a time, helping them cultivate their reading skills. During that time at the high school, she has no disciplinary actions against her. She has no negative job performance evaluations. Her students are thriving. The teachers at the high school love her. Her students love her. There was no reason for her to have left the job or be removed from that job. Instead, the district has a vacancy come up in the kindergarten classroom. And the person who was in that role left and broke her contract with the school district, and that left the school district in a bind, and they moved Miss Roberson from the high school interventionist role down to a kindergarten classroom. Miss Roberson has only 9 weeks experience as a kindergarten teacher, and even then she was not a teacher. She was only doing that during her student teaching experience while she was in college. That was 10 plus years ago. She has not been in a kindergarten classroom since. So they move her from a role where she's thriving, where her students are thriving in the high school, to the kindergarten classroom. And this is a rough classroom, to say the least. The previous teacher, as I said, had left, had broken her contract, had no consequences of doing so. 11 out of her 15 students in the classroom needed some kind of behavior plan. There were none in place. There were students in that classroom that had IEP needs and special education needs that the district was not meeting. The district did not provide her with any aides in the classroom, did not provide her with any paraprofessionals to help adjust to this new role. And in fact, they moved her in at the 9-week mark and asked her to put in grades for the previous teacher. She had no knowledge of what the previous teacher had done and was received no guidance, had no idea, knew nothing about these students, and was asked to put in grades for them. She received no assistance from an educational co-op. There was an educational co-op that could have sent in behavior specialists, could have sent in professional help, and the district did not do that for her. Which leads us to an incident that occurs, and it's unfortunate. Miss Roberson takes her class out to recess one day. There were supposed to be 2 other kindergarten classes with her. 2 other kindergarten teachers were supposed to be on the playground with her. She takes her class out there. The other teachers do not tell her that they're not going. The principal doesn't tell her that they're not going. And during that period of time, there are 2 students who were troublesome for Miss Roberson. They had engaged in a pattern of behavior towards her. They had taken items from her class. They had caused disruptions in the class. They had bothered other students. And they were supposed to be in ISS during this day. Had the principal followed through with her disciplinary recommendations to the parents and to Miss Roberson. But instead, they are in regular class. And they have acted in such a manner this day that they have wasted their 30 minutes of free time during the day. So Miss Roberson, as they're going to recess, sends these students to the office so that they can sit out there recess time and instead have an educational time with the principal. The students deviate from the other students heading out to the recess, and they go towards the office. And during that time, they speak to 3 different educators. They speak to a counselor who directed them to the lunchroom where the principal was. They spoke to an interventionist who had directed them to the office. And then they spoke to the principal herself, who sent the students back out to the playground without letting Miss Roberson know that they were going back. So Miss Roberson believes these students are in the office. Nobody lets her know that they are headed back out towards her on the playground. What happens next happens in 3 minutes. There's been some reporting that it was about 20 minutes in length, but actually what happens takes about 3 minutes to occur. The children leave the lunchroom on the far side of the playground, and they walk towards the end of it, away from the view and behind the back of Miss Roberson. They then walk directly behind her back. You can see in the video of the school district provides that they walk directly behind her. There is no viewing of the children by Miss Roberson. She has no idea that they're even there. And then they proceed out the far open gate of the playground. There's an open gate that is left open. We don't know how it got left open, but it's left open by the district. And these students walk out the gate, walk around the school, and come back in the front office door of the elementary, where they are then taken in. It takes about 3 minutes to occur. Miss Roberson, after she comes in from recess, is told that her students are in the office, and she says, great, well, that's where they were supposed to be. And then she finds out that they walked outside the gate and around to the front entrance of the school, and she's mortified. She's horrified. I mean, this is an open gate that leads to an open road. Anything could have happened to these children at this point in time. There was some reporting done. There was some forms taken where it appears that Miss Roberson is not upset about this event. That couldn't be further from the truth. The video shows her in shock. She covers her face. She's mortified. She's terrified as to what could have happened to these children. This is not the only time this has happened in the school district either. This gate has been left open multiple times throughout the school year. They've had children go out the school before with no consequences to those teachers, and now they have tried to take corrective action to fix those, but all while painting Miss Roberson as a scapegoat as to why this gate was left open. When we had our hearing, the superintendent could not tell us whose responsibility it was to close that gate, only that the buses go through there and that somebody's responsible for closing it. But it was not closed, and conveniently, the cameras are down as to that particular location outside the gate. The administration has tried to blame Miss Roberson. They've tried to paint her as a scapegoat here. They've threatened her, and that just couldn't be further from the truth as to what Miss Roberson's educational background is, as to her feelings toward the students and to the position she was put in. She was taken from a very successful role in the high school, placed in the elementary kindergarten or in the kindergarten classroom where she had no experience and had no support. The McCrory Elementary principal herself was new on the job and did not provide her with any assistance or training as well. Did not follow through with the plans that they had put in place for these behavior issues. The original recommendation from the state was a suspension, the maximum amount of probation, a fine, and some classes. The new recommendation before you is 3 years probation, a fine, and classes. And today, what we're asking this board to consider is not the recommendation from the PLSB. This is a district failure, and they're trying to paint Miss Roberson as the scapegoat. It's preventing her from obtaining gainful employment, preventing her from being able to take care of her family. Her husband is an educator, a lifelong educator as well. They understand the importance of education. They understand the importance of taking care of children. There was a DHS case that was opened in this case, as would be expected. And there were charges of endangering, there was charges of neglect, charge of lack of supervision, and DHS only found that there were true findings as to lack of supervision. No findings of neglect, no findings of endangering. There's been no criminal charges filed against Ms. Roberson. And DHS, importantly, has since found that Ms. Roberson does not present any kind of threat to children. and would recommend and she is not going to be placed on any maltreatment report or finding. Ms. Roberson simply wants to help students succeed, and she simply wants to help students read better, which is critical in this state. We need better reading. My mom is an elementary librarian. We understand the importance of reading. So we are asking this board today to let a good educator back in the classroom to help boost reading across the state of Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you. Whitney James with the department. Couple of clarifying items. Ms. Roberson has not been removed from the classroom. The recommendation was probation. Of course, it's not final because this case hasn't been to you yet for that decision. What you heard from her attorney today is largely her version of events, and I'm going to speak about facts. You had the transcript in the packet that we sent to you, so you know what the testimony was at the hearing. You know that she testified and had several different versions that differed from her interviews with us. And you also know, if when you read over the packet, you can see that the hearing subcommittee did not find her testimony to be credible. The educator in this case has requested a state board review after the hearing panel lowered her sanction. At the hearing, we argued that the appropriate sanction was suspension. Largely, that was because, again, that she's not credible. If you watch the videos, you can see that there wasn't just lack of supervision on the playground. There was also lack of supervision in the hallway. You also see that the students walked right in front or right behind, right in Ms. Roberson's area where she would have seen them before they walked out of the gate. So her argument that they were in the office and she wasn't expecting them to be out there just doesn't make any sense, and it does not correspond with the video evidence or the witness testimony. She does have 10 years of experience, a master's degree, and numerous certifications. As her attorney described, on November the 30th of 2023, while at recess, 2 students in her kindergarten class walked by Ms. Roberson, as you saw in the video, and walked to the side of the playground where they exited through a gate and walked around the campus through a parking lot near a busy road. Thankfully, the students were not injured. They showed up at the front door of the school where the counselor let them in and was wondering why the students are coming to the front door of the school when they should be at recess. Again, the counselor let them in and determined they had gotten out of the gate. When Ms. Roberson was walking back to the building after recess, she did not notice that the students were missing from the group, even though she claims the students were in alphabetical order. Another teacher commented to her, and that was, she testified to that at the hearing, and she also told us this in her interview, that she had mentioned to Ms. Roberson 2 of your students were in the office, and Ms. Roberson said, "What are you talking about? My students aren't in the office, they aren't missing." The school counselor took the students back to class. She testified at the hearing. That's the first time she took them anywhere. She took them back to class after recess. And Ms. Roberson apparently had not noticed that the students had been missing for whatever period of time that was. When questioned by her administration and our office, Ms. Roberson did not accept accountability. She gave a different version of events that did not match what others were saying, and it did not match the video footage. Ms. Roberson makes numerous excuses for the incident, including the gate should have been locked. Ms. Nick, the teacher that informed her that her students were in the office, shouldn't have been in the office. The superintendent yelled at her. The students had behavioral issues. She had never taught kindergarten before. The district didn't offer proper supports. The ethics training didn't cover lack of supervision. She had code of ethics training in August of 2023, which she stated at the hearing she didn't remember having. She claims that she knows the 8 standards well, yet she failed to properly supervise her students, which put their safety in jeopardy. At the hearing, she stated, "It's my responsibility to supervise the student, yes, but when they are leaving an area and I'm unaware of what they are doing, how am I supposed to supervise them when they leave the safety of the supervision willing? It was their choice to leave. They were being supervised by me safely and securely." She mentions at another time, they, the students, left my supervision. She also stated, "I just trusted the children wouldn't betray me and do that. I didn't ever think those children would be capable of that." But she also testified, and her attorneys mentioned today, that these students had behavioral issues. At the evidentiary hearing, Ms. Roberson gave testimony that was inconsistent with her recorded interview with our office. the video footage, and the witness statements and testimony. In her interview with our office, she stated, again, when the teacher, Mrs. Nick, asked her, "Do you know some of your students are in the office?" She said, "Well, not at this time. I sent them at the beginning of recess. Ms. Simmons sent them back out." At the hearing, she testified, "I knew they were in the office." So she said that she did know where they were, but that she didn't know where they were. We're not sure which is correct or which statement she's going to stand by. She stated at the hearing that she did not see the students on the playground, but as you saw in the video, they walked right by her right before they walked out the gate. The video footage shows the students going out to recess. They were with her, with the other group, when they went out to recess. That is on the video. If she thought they were in the office, then she didn't see them as they were walking out to recess. That indicates that she's not supervising them in the hall, like I said earlier. There's no evidence to support her claim that she sent the students to the office and the counselor walked them back out. The evidence is that she did not properly supervise the students, and as a result, they were able to exit the gate. She did not provide credible testimony at the hearing, and her testimony was inconsistent with the evidence and her previous statements. She's not taken accountability, and there's a preponderance of the evidence to support that she violated the Code of Ethics. Thank you.
We now can open the floor to board questions. Ms. Woods, do you want to start?
Thank you so much. I have a couple questions about the protocol for taking the kids out to recess.
Ms. Roberson, would you go to the mic?
All right, so your testimony is, or through your attorney, that you had sent these two students to the office prior to recess. Did you just send them out the class on their own? Did you drop them off? What did that process look like?
No, ma'am. We had talked in class. The one that was coerced out of the gate by the other student had a discussion with me. He had turned the water faucet towards the wall and sprayed water all over the floor, and we spent time cleaning that up, and I discussed with him, since your math instruction was missed today and you did this instead, then we're going to sit out at recess. And on our way down there, I told him, I said, you need to go and talk to the principal. You need to go and have a discussion with Mrs. Johnston, and you need to talk about your behavior, because the next consequence needs to happen. I've clipped you up and down today, and you're not responding to that, so the next thing needs to be a discussion with the principal so she can make her decision about what is the next consequence. They followed me out to recess. They made a distraction at the door, and Ava came, the counselor, Ava Simmons, came to the door and asked what they were doing. They said, we're waiting for the principal. She said, she's not here, she's on lunch duty. So they stayed there at the door because they knew they were not coming to recess. And the interventionist came and asked them if they needed a jacket. They said no. And she said, go play. Carrie Bowling also confirmed that they had spoke to Ava, and Ava said, no, I did not. And so when they knew that Miss Johnston was in the lunchroom, they walked down the awning to the lunchroom and knocked on the door, and Mrs. Johnston, the principal, approached them. I saw them having a conversation with her. I assumed she took them in with her by the way of the lunchroom, and I was watching the rest of the group. My back was not towards them, and on video you can see they do not go in with Miss Johnston. They go behind my back and walk out of the open gate that is a bus entrance in the morning and in the afternoons that was left open by a custodian that was supposed to close that gate when she came to duty after she parked her bus, and she did not. I was not notified by the office that this gate had not been closed. The cameras were down on the side of the building where they walked on the sidewalk safely under the awnings to the front door. There is no camera footage of those children in a parking lot.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm concerned, here's where my concern is, that you left them unsupervised, like you didn't walk them into the principal's office or into the office area. And I'm not familiar with the setup of your school, but I assume there's an office leading to the principal's office. So you're lining them up for recess. Do you walk them to the front door and ask somebody to take control of them? Because here's my thing,
Yes.
they're 5. And I
Yes.
have an almost 5-year-old, and I wouldn't trust him to like go down the hall.
If I had
So-
not been by myself with my other teacher team, I would have done that, but there were other students who were fighting in the classroom that day. There was a student who had autism, who had been kicked in the back in his calm down area by a student who was out picking up some of the recreational items that were left by 4th grade. And I was monitoring those 2 students to make sure that the boy who had autism wasn't attacked again. And those 2 boys were waiting for the adult at the door where the camera was on them.
Okay, so you're taking how many were in your classroom?
15
So you
that
had
day. They
15
were all
students.
present.
Okay, so you had 15 students, you're walking them down the hall, you tell those 2 to peel off and wait there by the door.
I told them, yes, you are going to go to the principal's office during recess today.
Right, but do you drop them off at the door of the principal's office?
They wait.
Okay.
They do. They wait.
So they're
and
left unsupervised right there or outside the door, is my yes or no?
They're not unsupervised.
Well,
There's
so
an
who's there with them?
interventionist right there. We
Okay, so
are.
you drop them off with the interventionist as you're walking
The
down.
class. They do. They play. There's no restriction on the areas they can play on the playground.
No. I'm not concerned about the playground. What I'm concerned about is as you're taking them outside, what happens to those 2 children? Do you hand them off to another adult?
They come out with us. They come out with the class, and they understand that they're not to be playing because there is a consequence. The procedure for students who are at level 1 infractions may walk the perimeter of the fence, which is a very large playground, which is inappropriate for 5-year-olds, especially when the gate is being left open on multiple days.
Okay.
And there are students who are flight risk, who look at the gate, and it's been reported to the principal that this student who is a flight risk chose not to go out the open gate, and there's not an action plan ever put in place by the principal as to why that gate is still being unlocked.
Okay, and I am concerned about a gate being open, but that's not my question. My question is these 2 students. I'm trying to figure out where the failure occurred. Did it occur, did you leave them out?
Adults didn't take them in. When they were sent to come off of the playground and the action plan was told, there's no consequence. So the behaviors are continuing. Nothing is going to be corrected until there is a consequence.
I understand that, ma'am, but I need to know, where were these 2 children? You're taking your 15 students out.
They are on the playground.
So they
and
do
they're
come out to the playground with you?
At the awning.
And they're standing there at the awning within your supervision. So they're still under your supervision at this point. Okay, so that seems inconsistent with what was said earlier, where you said you sent them to the office and they never came outside with
No,
you.
they were sent to the office, but they weren't allowed to come to the office by Ava, and she did talk to them. She did not allow them to come because Miss Johnston was not in there. So they go to the lunchroom to
So then they
her.
have no supervision at this point in time, is what you're saying. So you walk outside with 13 other students and leave them in the hall.
Leave who in the hall?
The 2 students at issue.
They were never in the hallway.
Okay, so all 15 students walk outside with you?
Outside.
Okay. At what point does Ava come and get them?
That's a good question. You can't see that on camera.
Okay.
There's no camera there.
Okay, so then all 15 students are under your supervision. What's the protocol for taking 2 students inside?
The protocol is all 3 teachers should be on duty.
Okay, but they weren't.
But there was only one, so there's no
So it's you.
protocol.
Okay.
I don't know what to do.
Okay. All right, my second issue, you didn't have any classroom experience. I understand that 15 5-year-olds is a lot. At any point in time prior to taking the job, did you say, hey, I don't have classroom experience?
I did. I asked them at the week when they asked me to finalize grades that were not entered by me.
No, before that.
I did.
So you're a reading interventionist up at the high school, and they say, hey, we need a kindergarten teacher. Do you say, I'm not a kindergarten teacher, I've not been in a classroom in 10 years, this is not...
There was no choice for that. When your superintendent tells you what to do, you do it.
Okay, did you at least tell them?
I told
prior
them
to-
I was looking for another job. It would be recommended to the board, but it would probably not be approved.
Okay. There was also, from the packet that we received, there was multiple times where like the principal came in and said, hey, we've got some classroom management issues, this is the schedule you're supposed to follow. Is it your
I
testimony?
was on schedule.
Okay. I may have more questions, but I'll turn it over. Mr. Grant. I have some questions. Just first and foremost, did you open the gate? when you
No,
walked
ma'am,
outside?
I did not.
Can you tell me what role you played in establishing, implementing, or ensuring compliance of safety protocols at the school?
Addressing behavior right away. It was documented through discussions with the principal and the parents.
Did you help write the safety protocols for the school?
No, I did not.
Were you responsible for ensuring implementation of the safety protocols? Like running
I'm
the drills or
uncertain.
practicing?
Can you rephrase that in a different way?
Were you ever given the responsibility of setting the practices that ensured safety was maintained at all times?
We were never educated on what to do if there were cameras down. The camera was down that day, and they knew in the office, and the secretary was on lunch and didn't notify. I'm not sure if she notified Chris Snyder, the technology director, that camera was down before she left to lunch and Ava took her position. But we should have been contacted by schedule.
So
Who
there
was
was-
going to be out there that day at the time that camera went down, that there were no cameras on the outside of the building and that the gate was unlocked.
Are you aware of any consequences or training that the principal or the superintendent were given to ensure that better safety protocols were in place?
I do know that the superintendent did attend a Morgan Nick training during the summer for missing and exploited children.
So I think back to my first year teaching and tell you a story of a misstep of mine. We're in the middle of state testing. We have everything covered. We've been given all the practices that we're supposed to do. Never leave the children unsupervised. Stay with the test. There's all these things so that, and it's pretty scary as a first year teacher how serious this test is. And we're in the middle of like the second day testing, and this sweet little girl throws up all over her test. And I froze. I didn't know what to do. I went to the phone and I called the office, no answer. Who knows what was going on? I called the nurse, no answer. Who knows what was going on? And I look at this classroom of 25 children who I cannot leave with the test. And this one little baby who is sick and crying and needs assistance. And I was just frozen. I didn't know what to do. Do I help? Do I leave the 99, put the whole state testing, put the school at risk and take care of this one child? Or do I tell her to clean herself? I didn't know what to do. And it was one of those situations that you are not prepared for until you're there. I think about how many times I've been on recess duty and I'm focused on one child telling me a story about the dream they had last night. And I'm so focused on that kid and engaging with them and giving them my attention that something happens in a far corner that I miss because that's just the way it is. And I think that this comes down to two things. First of all, I do not believe that you are responsible for setting protocol, for practicing the drills, for having systems and processes in place to prevent these things. I also do not think that the decision that we're faced with today is based on your actions during the incident. I think it's more about your reaction afterwards. I think the frustration with both the PLSB board and administration was in sort of a lack of accountability. So I am of the notion that teachers are human and mistakes are going to happen, but we have to also be vulnerable enough to say, I wish I'd done things differently and learned from them. I think I've taken up enough time. I'm going to pass it. Just get my thoughts out. Thank you. Go ahead.
Dr. Moore, did you have any questions for Ms. Robinson?
Thank you. Yes, I do, of Miss James, if that would be okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you walk with me through the thinking of the PLSB committee? And can you remind me, was there 2 hearings, the initial hearing and then an evidentiary hearing?
So this one went to the ethics subcommittee, and then Ms. Roberson requested a hearing. So just the one hearing, and I can read the rationale and remind everyone of the sanctions by both groups, if that would be helpful.
Yes.
Okay. When this initially went to the ethics subcommittee on May the 3rd, they found that Ms. Roberson violated standards 1 and 2, and they recommended training, reading, written reflections, quarterly reports, and found that her license should be suspended for 1 year, followed by probation of license for 2 years, plus a $300 fine. Their rationale was video evidence shows that the educator left multiple kindergarten students unsupervised. The students were left unsupervised for approximately 20 minutes. The educator has 2 true findings from DHS for child maltreatment. The educator showed no remorse for her actions. She took no accountability for her actions. Her account is inconsistent with the evidence, moderate to high negative impact on students. She should have known her actions were a violation of the Code of Ethics, and the only mitigator, it looks like, was this was her first year as a kindergarten teacher. Following the evidentiary hearing, the sanction was lowered to 3 years probation, a fine of $250, coursework, reading, written reflections, quarterly reports. The rationale there was video footage illustrates the educator allowed multiple kindergarten students to leave a supervised area. Multiple students were not properly supervised, which led to those students leaving the playground through an open gate close to a public road. Educator showed no remorse and no accountability for her actions. Her account is inconsistent with the evidence. Educator should have known her actions were a violation of the Code of Ethics. She has 2 true findings from DHS for child maltreatment.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So it is not common that we're going to see, I mean, so the initial sanction was lessened.
Yes,
the 3 years probation and took away the 1 year suspension.
Yes,
it is not common that we've seen, seen hearings like this after that initial was lessened. Can you speak to those 3 years probation? It allows you to continue to teach in the classroom, but your district's under the understanding. Is there any sort of work by a district if they hire a teacher who's under probation?
The district would be able to see that she has a violation of Standard 1. They would be able to see in AILS that she is on probation. Whether or not they would choose to hire her after knowing that would be a decision that the district would make, but the probation will not keep her out of the classroom.
Okay. And then as far as the DHS goes, based on what I read, it was a finding but name didn't go on any list. Is that correct? And so that doesn't jeopardize the license?
Correct. She would still be eligible. She's not on the child maltreatment. I've never seen that before, but again, I haven't been doing this long enough to say whether that's typical, but she is not on the child maltreatment registry, but the true findings for supervision or neglect to supervise were upheld.
Okay. But because she's not on the list, that doesn't impact licensure?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions right now. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Henderson, did you have any questions or comments? No.
I do not.
Ms. James, can you kind of walk us through our voting process here?
Yes, ma'am. So for these cases, there are 3 motions. And the first is whether the educator violated the Code of Ethics, and if so, what standards. In this case, we have standards 1 and 2 on the table. The second motion is what the sanction is, and you all can choose to modify the sanction or uphold the sanction of either the ethics subcommittee or the hearing subcommittee. And then the third motion is the rationale, which you can pick and choose. You've got 2 sets of rationale. You can choose one, the other, pick and choose, add your own.
So just so I'm clear, what's on the table is the probation for 3 years, the fine, and the classes, written reflections, quarterly report.
That is the recommendation of the Ethics Hearing Subcommittee. You're free to modify that. That was the most recent recommendation. Yes, ma'am.
And then one or two in the rationales. Can you go over those again?
Yes, ma'am. The rationale of the Ethics Subcommittee was video footage illustrates that the educator allowed multiple kindergarten students to leave a supervised area. Multiple students were not properly supervised, which led to those students leaving the playground through an open gate close to a public road. Educator showed no remorse and no accountability for her actions. Educator's account is inconsistent with the evidence. Educator should have known her actions were a violation of the Code of Ethics. Educator has 2 true findings from DHS for child maltreatment.
And that's rationale number 1.
That is rationale of the hearing subcommittee. So I can tell you, let me compare just real quick. The main difference is that the ethics hearing subcommittee removed the language about 20 minutes because at the hearing it was not totally clear how long they were unsupervised. And they also removed the mitigator that this was her first year as a kindergarten teacher. And let me see, I believe they also removed the statement that there was a moderate to high negative impact on students.
Okay.
Other than that, they're pretty much the same.
Do we have any other questions of Ms. James?
Is she currently teaching still or no? No.
I took the advice of Ms. James and took a position at UACCB in the fall, and I taught adult education at Batesville in their Sharp County offices, but I resigned.
Can you step up to the microphone,
I taught
please?
adult education classes to high school students seeking high school diplomacy in Sharp County, but it was too far of a distance for me to drive, and I wasn't making enough money.
Okay.
What are the, Ms. Roberson, what are the employment opportunities? What districts are you close to if this district would not take you back?
There are 17 districts in our co-op. I'm ineligible to work at the Riverview School District because I left that job to go to McCrory, so that leaves me with 15 districts to seek gainful employment with.
Thank you.
I want to clarify, I did not advise Ms. Roberson regarding employment. She had initially requested to move her hearing date out pending the DHS decision, and I always ask anytime we're moving anything out, are you working in education? And they informed me that she wasn't. I just want to clarify that I didn't give any advice to her regarding that.
I do have one question. Sure. Could you clarify then the Judge Stevens order of January 13th in relationship to our votes today?
Yes. Let me find those orders real quick. Like I said, I've never seen this before. However, I don't know if this is something that is commonly done. It looks like they made a settlement agreement of sorts to not proceed with the hearing. Maybe you can explain that better than I can.
Perhaps I can. I represented Ms. Roberson during that as well, and we entered into a stipulated agreement. It was the recommendation actually of the state. That was the original recommendation, that she basically admit to the two true findings of lack of supervision, but she would not be placed on the maltreatment list because DHS did not feel like she was any danger to the children and there was no impact on the students as to what happened. So that was actually the recommendation of DHS, and that was what we entered into an agreement with. And just so I may clarify that as well, that was one of the big reasons why we wanted to come today, was because they did that. DHS, while they did find that was a true finding, they did find that she does not pose any danger to the children and that what happened here did not have any kind of negative impact on the children in this case. And so that's why that's why we're here today.
Thank you.
So I'm just making sure I understand. So part of that stipulated agreement was her admitting that she had failed to supervise the children.
It was that we would not contest that. We would enter into the true findings, yes.
Okay.
Okay, board, if we are ready to vote, our first vote is, did Ms. Roberson violate the Code of Ethics Standards 1 and 2?
I'm not sure the correct language on this, but I move that we find Ms. Roberson did in fact violate standards 1 and 2.
I'll second. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Dr. Moore, did you vote? Dr. Moore?
Yes, if you don't mind, I can hardly hear you. I can hear others better. I'm sorry. But I voted yes.
Okay. Mr. Henderson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now we uphold the sentence of 3-year probation or modify.
You would decide if you want to uphold or increase or lower the sanction. So the next motion would be, I move that the sanction should be
Upheld or modified?
upheld, modified, and if it's modified, state what you would like it to be modified to. Yes, ma'am.
I'll move that we modify it, that she receives no license suspension or probation. Oh, excuse me, no license suspension, a 1-year probation, and we keep the recommended training coursework with monitored progress.
And the fine? The $250 fine?
No. Sorry.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. Let's see if I can remember. Okay. So I move that we modify the recommendations. We remove the license suspension, change it to a 1-year probation, and we keep the recommended training coursework with monitored progress and remove the fine.
I will also add, I will second that. I have a question though. Can we stipulate that the district provide her with a mentor as part of this or no? Or is that something we can ask for after the fact?
No, ma'am, this is her sanction.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's been moved and
I'll
seconded?
second, yes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Henderson? Was that yes?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Motion passes. And then we need to decide on the rationale.
Yes, ma'am.
Rationale number 1?
Rationale number 1 is the rationale of the ethics subcommittee, and it has the moderate to high impact, and it also has the 20 minutes that the students were left unsupervised. I believe those are the two main different, oh, and the mitigator that it was her first year as a kindergarten teacher.
Okay, and then rationale number 2?
Rationale number 2 is the same, basically minus the moderate to high negative impact and first year as a kindergarten teacher, and the 20 minutes that the students were unsupervised.
Are there any questions?
But didn't we say between the original and the second that the 20 minutes got erased because that was incorrect?
That's correct, yes, ma'am. The second one does not include the 20 minutes, the moderate to high negative impact, the first year as a kindergarten teacher.
Do we have a motion then?
So I'll make a motion that the rationale for the updated recommendation is that number 1, it was not the responsibility of the educator to ensure the consistent application of safety protocols. That falls on the administration. And number 2, we do believe that mistakes were made, and a mind shift is necessary for additional accountability on the part of the educator. I guess to sum that up, teachers are human. We all have things to learn, but I do not believe the events were solely her responsibility.
that her accountability was.
Is the motion to add that to the hearing subcommittee's rationale?
I'd like to replace all that, but that's the vote of the board.
I'll second it if we add it to.
Okay.
I mean,
That's true. Okay.
Like
so
to
you have to have a factual rationale, right?
This has more detail that supports the sanction, if that's okay.
So in addition to,
Yes.
okay.
So addition to, I'm confused now, rationale number one,
Would you
rationale number
read the remaining rationale?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. And then,
The rationale of the hearing subcommittee, video footage, in addition to the rationale that Ms. Keener just gave us, video footage illustrates that she allowed the multiple kindergarten students to leave the supervised area. They were not properly supervised, which led to students leaving the playground through an open gate close to the public road. No remorse, no accountability for actions, account is inconsistent with the evidence, should have known her actions were a violation, and 2 true findings from DHS.
yes, plus the, yes.
That is your motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
And I will second it.
Okay.
All those in favor, say an aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay,
Okay.
motion passed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sorry.
It's fine.
Not
It takes a
very
little while to get it ironed out.
This is what we need to do.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time this morning.
Do we need to take a short break, or are we okay to proceed? Proceed? Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. The next review hearing we have is for an educator, Ms. Evelyn James. It is case number 24129. We had an evidentiary hearing in this case on October the 30th of 2024, and Ms. James has requested a review. And, okay, I wasn't quite sure what Ms. James? Okay, Ms. James is here. Thank you. She came in during the other hearing. Just a reminder of the procedures. Swear in anyone that is speaking who is not PLSB staff or an attorney. The educator will have 10 minutes to present her objections, and then the PLSB will have 10 minutes to provide its argument.
Ms. James, do you want to come to the mic?
Yes.
Good morning. I need to swear you in before you start.
Okay.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. You've got 10 minutes. I think you can see the clock behind us.
First of all, thank you for your time. And I came because the first date, we got the dates mixed up. And then the second date, we were in the middle of testing and I could not take off. So, and I did not want to come, I didn't want a decision to be made about me as an educator without me speaking up for myself, because that paper doesn't represent me and who I am. And I think the biggest statement for me was that the educator didn't show remorse, and that is absolutely not the case. And so I don't want anybody to ever think that. I'm a parent. I have 2 children, and I'm a single parent. I have 2 kids in college. So harming children is not something that's what I do. I love kids. So I didn't want that to be a mitigating factor. I'm trying to, y'all have to excuse me. My eyes are terrible. So I did, I'm trying to find the paper. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Because I just wanted to highlight some things, and this is not any way me saying, oh, I'm not accountable for anything, or I don't have any remorse for anything. So that's not what it is. It's just some things that were stated in a complete picture was not given. Here we go. The first thing is, so in your evidence, the North Little Rock School District says that I was told that I would be placed on an intensive support plan in May 2023, which was true. However, when you look at the reasoning has absolutely nothing to do with tests. The reasoning was because I let a parent know the last period of the day that their child came to my class with a gash on their head and a bruise. And I knew that I had had a conference the day before with this parent about some issues that the child was having. I did not want the child to get on the bus and go home like that. And I asked the child, I said, well, did you go to the nurse? And he says, yeah. So another little boy says, oh, I took him to the nurse. Okay. So I get to work the next day. I'm getting lambasted because I contacted the parent. I'm like, you know what I'm supposed to do? Like, literally. So he was injured at lunch in front of some security and admin, and he was taken to the nurse, and none of them called him. So 4 periods later, I got him, and I was the only one that contacted the parent, but now I need to be placed on an intensive support plan. And for me, I felt like that was retaliation because y'all clearly had no intentions of telling the parent. And it was just boy stuff. I have a boy. He threw the ball on the thing, and the boys got mad, so they jumped on him they're boys, and they're rough. And he didn't want to say anything because he's got his boy bravado. So that wasn't to me. But if you fast forward, I asked to be moved out of the building because it's a hostile working environment. And I was denied a transfer, and then they employed 3 people who were not certified at all, and I am certified to teach science 7 through 12 in Arkansas, and left me in the building. So then I get to work in August, and every other core teacher has 2 pre-AP classes. I only have 1, and with the exception of one other teacher, I had the most teaching experience in the building. Okay, so then I get this inclusion class, and this is the class that's in the paperwork that you have, because I didn't have issues in the other 5 classes. I very rarely write kids up. I'm not, we're doing stuff, so we don't have time for all the shenanigans. So I don't write the kids up. And this particular class, not only is it an inclusion class, there's 30 kids in the class, 12 of them have IEPs. I got 3 kids that don't have IEPs, but they came from the ALE with behavior issues. It was just toxic. I'm getting cursed out every day, talked crazy to every day. I'm reporting. I'm like, hey, can I get a co-teacher? I had one the year before. No, it's science. You don't get one. Hey, y'all got all these kids in here. I need some help. And I'm not afraid to say, hey, I know I'm teaching for a long time, but I still need some help. This is a lot. And so it was just a buildup, like every day. Other teachers are like, ooh, that class. That have them. They're like, ooh, that class. But the math teacher, the English teacher, they have a co-teacher. The social studies teacher, they had a parapro in there with them. So only the science people didn't have anybody to help them with the same rotation of kids. So the first incident, I just wanted to highlight, I did not go towards the child. I'm standing here talking to you all. He's eating, and I'm like, you're not supposed to be eating in class. Go throw your trash away. So instead of him walking around the behind of me, he tries to come in between. So I put my hand out. I was like, hey, go that way, right? So when he comes back from the trash can, he does the exact same thing. He gets on me. So I put my hand up on his shoulder. I said, you clearly want my attention today. You are so adorable. And I played with his cheeks. I said, now will you please go sit down? So it wasn't an interaction that was aggressive or negative or anything. And he was in my space. I never went into his space and, touched him. And I felt like that needed to be illuminated. And so there was this really long gap in there because I had COVID. I had, that's why I can't see. So I find out that I have diabetes, high blood pressure. I had a hemorrhage in my eye. And me being super teacher, I'm like, oh, I'll just wait till Christmas to get my eye fixed. Well, that can affect your mood. It's overstimulating when you're trying to compensate. So here I am. This next day, when we come back I came back after the COVID, after the being sent home, all the other stuff. So I have this new student, never seen him before because he comes, he came when I was out. So here I am. This particular day, the day before, the student, He traps me up in the classroom after class, alone, and there's nobody upstairs. So I'm upstairs in a corner. The other teachers have walked the kids downstairs. So he's still in the room. And so he's following me around the room. And I'm like, hey, you gotta. So I had to go out in the hallway and close my door to get him to come out of my classroom. And it was very aggressive. And so I told the assistant principal, okay, and it was like, whatever. Well, I have PTSD. It was very triggering for me because when I was in high school, and I didn't realize that it was just triggering for me. When I was in high school, my classmate, he stabbed the teacher in the room next to us, and then he came out, and he's covered in blood, and nobody did anything about it. We didn't get counseling, we didn't get therapy. They told our parents we were already going to a football game, so I carried that. So I don't like kids too close to me, and I don't like to be alone in the room with them, and I never really identified what that was. Like, oh, okay, you've been traumatized, haven't we? So here I am. He did it that day. And then that afternoon, we find out one of our students was in a house fire, and my coworker's like, oh my God, I feel bad because I'm the reason he got suspended and he was at home. And I'm like, no, it's not your fault. It's just a horrible day. We get up, and the boy died. So this particular day, it was just bad all the way around. And so that's not an excuse. That's just the reality of a school day. And it was horrible. So this child, the lesson that we're doing is very open-ended. You just have to make a statement. Do you agree or disagree? So there is no right or wrong answer. I can't tell you what you agree or disagree with. He couldn't accept that as an answer. So what you didn't hear was him calling me dumb, stupid, and cursing at me. And so when he told me to shut up, my response was, no, you shut up. Was that appropriate? No. And I understand that. But in that moment, I was having a bad day. And it was a horrible day. And, I've looked at the statements. They're all inconsistent. The handwritings, these are the same classes, so you all can see. The handwritings look different, and it's the same exact class. How's the handwriting different? How are kids writing the exact same thing on a statement? All of that, to me, is, terrible. But then when you fast forward, I have no paperwork that this child is special needs. It's not in it's not in eSchool. I don't have it. It's nowhere. So there's nothing that says this. The only paperwork I have that came from the school that he came from says he doesn't have anything. He's not receiving services. But the mother took to the internet because she couldn't come upstairs that day and fight with me. And you all should have that audio from the office where she's trying to come and be combative with myself and the math teacher. So she takes to the internet and she's portrayed this whole story. This is a child with special needs, and there's nothing saying that he is. And I did not respond to her until she got on my Facebook page bothering my 78-year-old mother. Then she was bothering my children. And then she's harassing me. So that's why I filed a police report on her, because she was harassing me and not representing the situation well, because she's an influencer. So she's making money off of these posts. She's making money off these likes. And
Ms. James,
I'm sorry.
Your time is up.
Yeah, I saw that, sorry.
We're going to hear from the other Miss James with the department. Do you want to sit right here so we can ask questions if we need to? Thank you.
Hi, Whitney James with the department. Miss Evelyn James has been a teacher since 2004. She began her employment with the North Little Rock School District in August of 2021. She was a 7th grade science teacher. She has referred to herself in our interviews as an excellent educator, an overly trained educator. She has not accepted accountability. She denies that she violated the Code of Ethics or district policy. The evidence presented at the evidentiary hearing proved otherwise. She's displayed a pattern of physical abuse and verbal abuse towards students. The allegation in this case is as follows. On September the 1st of 2023, Ms. James allegedly forcefully grabbed a student by the neck during class and started pulling on him. Other students filled out witness statements that Ms. James put her hands on the student, either by pulling his ear or neck or putting her hand on his eyes. Later, on November the 9th of 2023, a student we'll call S2, who had been complaining to his mother that Ms. James was mean to him and would not help him in class, took it upon himself to record part of the class so that he could document the way that Ms. James spoke to the students. That recording of that classroom interaction was in the documents that we sent to you. And I'm sure you heard that that Ms. James made statements such as, "You're talking to me like I'm stupid and slow. You are. Shut up. That's why I don't like you, because you got to constantly say something to me. Shut up, shut up." She says shut up to the students repeatedly, and this was just an 18-minute clip of one class on one day. Following this, Ms. James engaged in a Facebook argument with the student's parent and others on Facebook where others could see. Ms. James insulted the parent, discussed 504 plans and IEPs, posted about how the student who recorded the interactions in class had been transferred from one district to another. Other parents and students were engaging in this on Facebook, and also had posted other things about Ms. James's behavior and incidents in other districts. In this case, the appropriate sanction is suspension of license followed by probation. The allegations are inappropriate communication with the student plus inappropriate interaction with the student. The starting sanction is probation. However, in this case, there's moderate to severe level of impact of the students. There's evidence of prior similar behavior, willful or intentional violation of the Code of Ethics. She's a veteran educator. These aggravating factors take us from probation to suspension. That is what the hearing panel found. That's what the ethics subcommittee found, and that is our argument here today. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Ms. James? Dr. Moore, do you have any questions? Mr. Henderson, do you have any questions?
I do not at this time.
Okay.
And I don't either. Sorry, I could barely hear you. Thank you.
Okay. So, Ms. James, would you go over how we're going to vote?
Yes. The first motion is whether or not the educator violated the Code of Ethics, and if so, what standards. This one is another 1 and 2. The second is the sanction. The state board may uphold the recommended sanction or modify it. The sanction was, I believe, the same between the two groups that reviewed. The only difference is the fine was lowered to $250 at the evidentiary hearing, and the rationale was a little different.
Can you, just for a second, so it was suspension for how long?
The ethics subcommittee recommended suspension of license for 1 year, followed by probation of license for 1 year. There's some training, coursework, readings, and a $500 fine. The ethics hearing subcommittee upheld the 1 year suspension, followed by 1 year probation, lowered the fine to $250, and gave the same trainings and other recommendations.
Sorry, and then you were saying the rationale.
Do you need the rationale?
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were going to read it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I certainly can. Do you want to wait till we get to that?
But
okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So then our first motion will need to be, did Ms. James violate the Code of Ethics Standards 1 and 2?
I'll move to substantiate, uphold that she violated standards 1 and 2. Second.
We have a motion.
That's
by
my
Ms.
motion, yes,
Woods, second by Mr. Bragg. So, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay. Our second motion then is to uphold or modify for probation and suspension.
Move to uphold.
Second.
Motion is to uphold the 1 year suspension with 1 year probation, training with a $500 fine.
It was $500 at the ethics subcommittee, lowered to $250 at the hearing.
So we need to decide either which way.
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we'd like to go.
Yes, ma'am.
So that needs to be in our motion.
Yes, ma'am. If you would like to uphold the 1 year suspension followed by 1 year probation, you can list whether you want $250 or $500, and then you want to uphold the rest of the recommended trainings and coursework.
Oh, I would like to, for the motion to be upheld with the modification of the fine reduction to $250.
So we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then our final motion needs to be on the rationale.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll move we uphold the rationale.
Second.
Then moved and seconded to uphold the rationale.
Was that of the hearing subcommittee?
Of the subcommittee.
Okay.
The hearing subcommittee?
Yes.
I'm sorry, we have two subcommittees. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And all right, we need to vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Ms. James? Thank you. Everybody take a deep breath. Those are always very difficult. Okay, our next item of business is Graduate Arkansas Charter, and I believe they have a recommendation.
Good morning, Hope Worsham, Assistant Commissioner for Public School Accountability. The rules governing standards for accreditation for Arkansas Public Schools, Standard 1-C11, require that all students test 95% of their students in the state summative assessment in grades 3 through 10, or 3 through high school, excuse me. We have two buildings this morning that are in their second year of not meeting that requirement for 95% tested. The first one is Graduate Arkansas Charter High School. They are here to address the board. The department is recommending that they remain in accredited status for their high school. They did make significant improvement in the percent of students tested across the past 2 years, doubling the number of students percent that they were able to test. And we believe that with continued support from the department and remaining in cited status, that they will see significant improvement this year as well. So I will turn over to, I believe the district is going to speak, and we have slides for you.
If you would introduce yourself as you come to the microphone, let us know your name, please.
Good morning, Katie Hatley, Superintendent of Graduate Arkansas.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry. I see people waving back here.
Oh.
Sorry.
I don't think it's a hearing. I don't believe this is a hearing. Were you appealing? Y'all weren't doing an appeal. Were you appealing the citation?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
You are appealing
Yes,
it?
ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were just going to present, so.
No, ma'am.
Did we receive a letter to appeal?
We did receive a request to speak to the board, and I did not understand that there was an appeal, but
Okay. Then
we did receive a request
swearing in
to
if
address
it's
the
an
board.
official
Yes.
appeal.
So all of you that will testify this morning, I'll need to swear you in. So please stand. Who's going to be testifying? Okay. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give us is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself again?
Okay.
I didn't quite hear your last name. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Katie Hatley, Superintendent of Graduate Arkansas.
Thank you. Ms. Hadley, go ahead.
Good morning, State Board members, Assistant Commissioner Smith. We come today again to appeal the accredited cited status. And with our presentation, you'll see the many reasons why. Today, we travel with our entire leadership team, but we have 2 test coordinators who will present the material to you.
I'm sorry. Do we need a timer?
I was looking for.
Go ahead.
Do we need a timer? Is this that kind of?
Yeah, there's a time limit. 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
15. Okay.
for you. You
Don't
just
start
sit-
my
you just
timer
sit
yet.
back.
This clicker isn't working.
I missed Dr. Moore this morning.
Always.
You're doing great.
Don't start the timer yet, the clicker is malfunction.
Don't start it yet.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Oh, we'll go back to.
Jacob couldn't have handled this, so I'm glad.
Thank you, Stacy. You're right. So many of you may not know much about Graduate Arkansas and our mission. We educate students 15 to 21 years of age, or 14 and if they're in the 9th grade. But our mission simply states that we provide personalized learning opportunities to re-engage disconnected students to help them earn a high school diploma and pathways to lifelong success. Our vision is still to become the nation's leading model for dropout recovery and credit recovery education through excellence in student support, instructional innovation, and community partnerships. And at this time, I turn it over to our coordinators.
If you would please introduce yourself and really get up into the mic for us.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Gintovano. I'm the district test coordinator. This is our data pulled directly from MySchoolInfo. In each of our subgroups, our testing percentages have doubled or more than doubled last year compared to 2023, with the exception of the African American subgroup. We had the largest growth and highest achievement in our Hispanic and Latino subgroup. And I also serve as the ESOL coordinator, so this was a huge source of pride for me, as much of that subgroup is our English learners, and I get the pleasure of supporting them as well. We've included 2022's percentages on this slide as well for historical data. Overall, we have shown tremendous improvement from the previous year's percentages. Here is our enrollment growth over the past few years. We currently have 653 students, and last year our enrollment was at 490. We've tested more students year after year with a growth in enrollment, and more students tested means percentages carry more weight. We must now test more students now than ever. We have put systems and personnel in place to ensure that we have the capacity to test any student required to participate. Last year, we tested 317 students in writing, but only 298 of those students were counted in our ELA participation as a whole. Since there were separate testing windows for writing and ELA last year, this limited our student completion. Some students who attended the writing test session didn't or were not able to attend the ELA test session, which was held over a month later. Now that both tests are within the same test window, we can better ensure that each one is completed to provide an accurate ELA participation percentage. We do want to acknowledge that DESE worked with us to pair writing data with ELA data. However, this was a challenge for us as we try to get students to complete in-person testing.
Thomas Coy with Graduate Arkansas. Thank you all for having me. Good morning, board. I know I've appeared before you in a different capacity for many years, so I'm thankful to be back here today. One of the things that we did want to address with you is this remote testing approval. So last year we started the writing assessment, as Ms. Quintovando said. We were doing all of those in person. We were having students to our campus. We were traveling across the state trying to get students tested in writing. We were informed then that we would also have to do our ELA testing in person as well. If a student started in person, they had to finish in person. Now, I will commend the state, and I will commend especially Michelle Johnson and her group in assessment and Assistant Commissioner Worsham. They have all worked with us. They've been attentive to our calls and our concerns. And I think they put things in place for this year that will make it much easier for us. But it was a challenge. This was a source of stress for us last year. It was a source of frustration. And then when we finally got approved to test remotely, it was kind of a source of relief, right? We could get some of these students tested in multiple methods. So I did want to commend DESE for that. This year, I want to assure you all that we are ready for in-person and virtual testing. Because the state released a commissioner's memo and released information about the remote testing agreement early in the year, we have been collecting those. We have over over 300 students, I believe, that have remote testing agreements in place, so we can test them remotely. We still have a plan, and we'll get to that in just a minute, about how we test students in person as well. So, if you look at this map, this kind of gives you a breakdown of where a lot of our students were concentrated last year. So if you don't know anything about our school, we are both an in-person and a virtual model. We try to help students recover from credit deficits, or students who've been maybe traditional school just doesn't work for them. We serve them all, we take them all. So any student who needs to enroll with us that fit the requirements, the age requirements, they can enroll with us, absolutely. So if we look at these 16 testing sites across the state, these represent places that we actually traveled to, and this was not just one day. We traveled during the writing, we traveled during the open window, and we also traveled to these sites during makeup testing. So all of these sites represent maybe 3 trips or more to each of these places. Y'all, this was a team effort. It wasn't just several of us getting out and driving, it was everyone. It was our teachers. We would drive. We are thankful for the educational co-ops who hosted us, the public libraries who gave us spaces to test, community centers, community colleges. Oftentimes we had to pay to rent those spaces, but we went to these places and we met students. And if I can just give you a real quick personal thing, of the sites I went to, what made the most difference to me is actually getting to interact with the students who often would only join us virtually. Figure out how they came to us, maybe what wasn't working in their school. And that's not an indictment of their school. It's just, how did they end up with us and why are we serving them? So, it took a lot to get me to leave the department. I was here for a long time, but I feel like I'm in the right place because our students are really doing great things, and our school is really doing great things. And again, this is a whole team, our entire leadership team, our teaching team. We have core teachers in every area. We were all out testing. Not to mention, we did not put on here Little Rock, North Little Rock, Jacksonville, the places in Central Arkansas where we would meet our Central Arkansas students in person. They would come to either our campus, or we also set up some opportunities for them. So if you look at our breakdown, we did a lot of traveling last year, a lot of work to get a lot of students tested. We're doing after-hours testing. If I have bags under my eyes, if some of our other folks have bags under their eyes. We're doing this right now with our interim testing. We offer remote after-hours testing if the students have a remote agreement in place. We offer that from 4:30 to 9 p.m. while we're doing interims, also while we're doing summative assessments. So I wanted to point out that it's not just the regular school day, because I believe that our students, circumstances happen to all of us, right? Economics happen to some of our students. Some of our students work full-time. Some of our students are homeless, some of our students are parents, and we have to accommodate their schedule. So we are doing everything that we can to try to accommodate them so that they can be present for testing. One thing that we did this year, last year we did not use the ATLAS assessments. When the state released all those, we started using ATLAS assessments because we're trying to build this culture of accountability in our school. If we can get our students accustomed to logging on to the ATLAS portal, taking those tests, I believe that they will then show up for summative. So we are doing the interim assessments. We're in round 2 right now. We've got people testing right now while we are here. We'll be testing this evening as well. The benefit of that, and one of the great things that the state has done in providing that for us, it provides quick score results, which will help us guide instruction and strategies. We hear a lot about that. We hear a lot about intervention. It's a challenge sometimes to get our students to show up for intervention. But what we do is we look at those scores, and we have created weekly small group support for our students scoring in level 1 and level 2. There's required participation in the intervention group. So you may already be asking, like, well, what happens if the student isn't there, right? You just told me that maybe they can't be there during the day. We record all of those. There's an exit ticket. We are also we are a mastery program, so we have turned off prescriptives. Like students cannot accelerate quickly if they do not assess. So there's a consequence. We don't deny them their education, we don't deny them the support, but we do tell them, you're not gonna get to rush through this class or this program if you don't participate in our testing. So those are some of the strategies that we've done to try to encourage and motivate our students, if you will, to perform and to show up. And so finally, we have plans for improvement. Another thing you might not know about our school, every student has an academic advisor. Every student has a success coach. Our success coaches kind of deal with the extraneous, if you will. Our academic advisors deal with, again, the academic piece, right? So what we're trying to do is enhance communication through our entire team of support to get students engaged. So what you might see at our school is you might see an academic advisor calling a student 4 or 5 times, and especially if they're online only. Hey, I need you to test, I need you to test, I need you to test. Well, if they're not responding, you'll see our success coaches step in. And our success team, led by Mr. Johnson, who is here, is fantastic, y'all. They have the motivational skills that oftentimes we don't have as academic advisors, but they are wonderful to encourage, support, come back to the academic team and say, hey, this student is struggling with this. Can they test tonight at 7:30? Absolutely, sure. We're going to do whatever we can to accommodate them. We're trying to, again, offer flexible in-person and remote testing times. We've talked about that, so I won't revisit that. When we met with DESE on a Zoom, some of our support Zooms for the 95% tested that we're required to attend have been great. They've added some encouragement around test completion incentives. So we're trying to incentivize not only our teachers and our staff to encourage students, but also our students who actually take and complete all of their tests. We are partnering with juvenile justice systems. If we know that a student has a parole officer or a FINS officer, we're leveraging that so that we can perhaps motivate a student to show up and to do what they are required to do. And we're in the process of creating local educational support hubs. So one thing that we learned last year through our traveling to different places is, and I mentioned it earlier, the personal part is that it was really meaningful to me to see our students and to figure out what they were doing. A real quick story, because I've only got a couple minutes. We had a student who showed up, and Dad brought her to testing and said, are they going to be done by 11 because we've got chicken houses and cattle farms? It reframed my whole thought about the student's participation. She works from 6 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, and that's just the reality, right? We don't look at that as pity. So, but I say that to help you understand that when we create these local educational hubs, our desire is to really connect with our students, because we believe that if we connect with them, that they will be more inclined to participate. And I couldn't be prouder of this team that sits behind me. I couldn't be prouder of the work that we're doing, because we truly are reaching students who I believe are underserved in our states, and that traditional school doesn't necessarily work for them. I'll turn it back over to Ms. Hatley.
So as you can see from the presentation, we're a non-traditional model. We really are in the trenches meeting the needs of students who really need us the most. I was a coach growing up, traditional settings. I was blessed to teach in other states, Hawaii and Alabama. And I was still just attracted to at-risk youth. That has been my purpose, to finish out my educational career, but I want the state board to see that we are meeting the needs. And we are following, DESE give us a plan of support, we just put it on steroids to make sure we go above and beyond to try to meet the needs of these students. Thank you.
So the request from the department is to have, to continue the citation status for graduate Arkansas High School. They have made significant improvements. We commend them for that, and we feel like that with the continued support from the department, they will continue to make improvements to meet their 95% tested. And then we do not request any further action past that.
questions?
So we could remove them from cited status, that's within our discretion?
So that we bring the recommendation for you for them to remain in cited status, and then it is the board's decision of what to do with that.
So, but because this would be their second year, they're in cited status now, is that correct?
That is correct.
And so the normal progression would be that they would move from cited status to,
That is after 2 years. So
Okay.
if they do not meet their 95% tested after this year's citation, then they would be moved to probationary status, which then could have other consequences,
thank you,
other actions.
thank you.
Dr. Moore, do you have any questions?
I do have one question. Does this have any relevance? Does this go in front of the charter panel? And does it have any relevance on their charter?
This does not go before the charter panel because it's a standards for accreditation request. But I do believe that Mr. Smith may have the school discuss their action plan with the charter panel upon renewal.
Thank you.
Mr. Henderson, questions?
Yeah, just for my clarification, what is the state, the department is asking us to do once again?
So we're requesting that the school is currently in cited status for this particular standard. We are requesting that they remain in cited status for 1 additional year as they implement the action plan that they have discussed today.
Okay.
Questions?
No, I don't think that's protocol, sorry.
Questions? Okay. I think my question is, you've talked about how far they've moved. What percentage have they changed?
So they went from 25% tested in ELA to 61% this year, 61.9 actually, so almost 62. And they went from 26% tested in 23 in math to 50% tested this year. So they've doubled the percent of students they've tested, and they have made implemented significant changes to their system to ensure that that happens.
So being in cited status, aside from the fact that they are in cited status, does that limit them in any other way?
It does not limit them in any other way. In fact, it provides requires a plan of action from us and then additional support from my office, however we can be helpful.
So if we remove cited status, your office doesn't assist?
We would assist at the normal level that we do with other schools, so that's more general assistance. But with this situation, we are more in touch with the building. We would be working with them more closely.
Okay. If we remove cited status and they do not meet that goal again, does the clock start completely over where they're in the first year cited again?
Yes, it would.
And, okay, so now I have another hypothetical. If they remained in cited status this year and then we come back next year, then we're not compelled to move them to probationary status. We could again just keep them in cited status.
The rules do require that after you've failed for 2 consecutive years that you shall be assigned probationary status. So that the rules do require that you shall be. Now then there's further, you don't have to take any further action past that at that point.
I like that.
Is there a time frame on the probationary status?
It is for 1 year.
But whereas cited doesn't really have any ramifications, probation does.
That is correct. Could, no, sorry.
Could.
Doesn't require, could, yes. May is the right word.
I mean, I'll just say, I'm just so impressed with the work that you all do. I remember you here last year. And, you know, I'm so just impressed then, even more so now. So congratulations for the progress that you've made.
Ms. Hadley?
Yes, ma'am.
I know you wanted to say something a minute ago. Do you want to come to the mic and go ahead?
The chair's allowed to do that. So you can, the chair can do that. So I would take that opportunity.
I'm from a family of 12. I had strict parents, so I can obey real quick. I just wanted to say that, yes, we did appear before the state board 2 years ago, and that accredited cited status was released. Just to know the charter's been in existence for 14 years and under my leadership the whole time. That anytime we've been in any trouble with the state is the 95% not tested. But once again, I mean, I understand federal law, but I also understand state compliance. So by no way am I ever trying to overstep or anything like that. I just don't feel that we're comparing apples to apples. You know, we're not testing, 15 to 16-year-olds. We're testing, I get emotional, we're testing 18 and 19-year-olds who are in the 9th grade too. So it's kind of different.
Thank you.
I wonder if this is one of those things that this is such a niche little pocket. Can you tell me a little bit more about other schools that are similar with non-traditional populations and sort of where they fall in their testing percentages?
So there are only 2 schools that we're bringing to you today. Both of them are dropout recovery or prevention at-risk student populations. There are a few other programs that serve similar populations, and they are not on the list today. What I would say is with the implementation of online testing, the population will be easier to reach. And again, I feel like the building has done significant improvement under the support that we've been able to provide and maintain contact with them. And I just wouldn't want to see that fall off in the future. I think that they are committed and they will meet their goal.
I struggle, to your point, and to kind of something you brought up, is just saying we're applying traditional rules to a non-traditional setting, and that's hard.
Right.
But also it is the rules we have, so that's my conflict.
Well, and I'll go even further on that conflict because, the work that you do is so amazing, and I think that having the additional support of the state by being in cited status is a plus. So I hate to see you lose that. I mean, and you might say, well, we don't need it. We've got our plan, and we've planned our work, and we're gonna work our plan. And if that's the case, then I mean, I don't know, but I'm very conflicted about easing up on any support that you may have.
I also wonder, seeing as there's no direct consequence at this point for staying in cited status, and the plan is, we're confident about the plan. I say my thoughts are we stay in cited status, prove it to us, get to that 95%, we won't see you here next year. And if we do, perhaps that was the right decision, that maybe moving to a higher tier of consequences would be the right time. So, in the meantime, we might look at the rules.
Is that a form of a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we, oh, sorry, I cut him. Did you have anything? Okay, I was ready to move on. I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendation of the department, which is to maintain, for Graduate Arkansas to be in cited status for their 2nd year.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Mr. Bragg. Is there any further discussion? Dr. Moore?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Henderson? No. Okay.
No questions.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed?
I'm gonna oppose, just because I'm still conflicted, so I'm gonna say no.
That's okay. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
And y'all are a sharp-looking group, too. Thank you for coming.
Can I make a comment? Do you mind? Again, I just want to acknowledge that, and I think this board today does acknowledge and recognize the students that you work with. Not everybody opens their doors and goes after kids who have not been successful, and you do. And I know Ms. Warsham's recommendation today was not to impugn, or we made no recommendation other than meeting the standard, right? We're here to support you. We applaud you. No recommendation is further actions upon you today. So keep doing the good work. Keep working hard. And hopefully next year we're going to fill this place with balloons and say we made it to 95%. All right? So congratulations on your work.
So the second request that we bring to you today is for the same standards for accreditation 1-C.11, which is to test 95% of students. The school that we are recommended to remain in cited status for their second year is Premier High School Online, part of the Premier High Schools of Arkansas group. I will say for this particular district, they did have 3 schools on the list last year, and they are down to 1. They have as well made significant improvement. They have gone from approximately 50% of their students testing in 2023 to 90 and 93%. So they are very close to meeting that mark. Similar request as before, the department will continue to support them directly through the efforts of an action plan. They have made significant improvements. We do not request any further action than for them to remain in cited status, and the district is here to speak on behalf of the request.
I just want to clarify real quick. So are we, because this wasn't clear before, are you accepting the citation day, or are you doing an appeal?
So they do want to appeal the cited status.
You, I will. Should I get sworn in first? 15 is what they said for Steve.
Okay, I'll need to swear you in before we start. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you would please really get to the mic and introduce yourselves.
I'm Dr. Dennis Felton Jr. I'm the Vice President of School Operations for Responsive Ed Arkansas.
Good morning. My name is Susan Provenza, and I'm the Superintendent for Responsive Ed Arkansas. Thank you for having us here today.
Now, we were just clarifying with the department. Originally, when we prepared this presentation, we were going to talk about 3 schools. And so we're just going to focus on Premier High School Online. And so once again, we are here to appeal the state's recommendation to put Premier High School Online as cited status for accreditation. And as you can see here, we barely missed the mark. We understand that the state and federal has guidelines on test participation, but we do also believe that it's not the intent to penalize small schools that may have 1 or 2 uncontrollable circumstances in which students are not taking a test. And so you see here where we had 90.4% tested in ELA and 93% tested in math. And so also just showing you all our improvement with our online, we almost double our participation from 2023 to 2024. So you see where all students in ELA, where we tested 50%, we came back with a 40% increase and tested 90% of students. And you see in math where we had 51% of students tested, we came back and had a 42% increase in student participation. So one of the things that we do very similar, we serve a very non-traditional population when it comes to our Premier High School students. Often these students are struggling. They're dealing with chronic absenteeism, may have been dropped from previous school district due to lack of attendance. A lot of students have previously dropped out of high school, and so we're engaging them back in the high school process. And so wanted to commend our team of the efforts that they put together to test students remotely, to set up testing locations, to test after hours, alternate days, just to be flexible for our families, which represents that big increase you all have seen from year over year. One of the things we also, as implement a new state assessment, it does bring its challenges. And one of the things that we noticed that the state had information that if a student hadn't completed 75% of coursework, they would not be able to, they shouldn't be participating in the end of year assessment. So we realized when we looked at our data, we did have students, because we are mastery based and we're able to track where students are in their coursework, that enrolled late in the school year had not met their requirement that still participate in the assessment. And so what we did is we compiled data to see which students participated in the state assessment who actually completed the 70% threshold, the students who participated in the assessment who did not meet the 70% threshold. And so just moving forward, we're just here committed to let you all know that we continue to put a strong participation plan together and be flexible for our families, to communicate with those families, to test early as soon as the testing window opens, and continue to provide a myriad of options, whether it's on-site, remote, after hours, on alternate days, maybe like a weekend day to be able to get students tested. And so here, what you're looking at is we took the data that we got from the state, and we went back and looked at our own data, and we broke it down based on which students actually should have taken a state assessment and met that coursework requirement, and which students actually participated who should not have been participated and should have been removed from the testing roster. And so where we tested 50 students in Algebra 1, we should have just tested 14 students. We tested 42 students in geometry, where we actually should have had 19 students on that roster. And so breaking down those students, so we identified 8 students who did not take the ELA assessment in Premier High School online. Of those 8 students, 1 student was incarcerated in juvenile justice, so we were not able to test that student. We had 6 students that enrolled in the school after the testing window had closed. And so as previously stated by our district, last year the way the testing windows were set up where we tested writing in one window early in the spring semester, and then later we started our other assessments. So if a student enrolled after the writing window was over with, we did not have the ability to test that student. And then we had 1 student that was just dealing with a technology issue with their device, which we was trying to troubleshoot, which hindered their ability from actually completing the assessment after they had logged on. And so as we know, there'll continue to be uncontrollable circumstances. I want to commend our team, our principals, our teachers, our student engagement specialists, our success coaches. They were constantly on the phone contacting parents. They were setting up remote testing locations. We were going to certain communities to make more accommodations for those students, and also putting together different things that way if a student was having maybe like a transportation issue or there was a device issue, to set up where they could actually come in site at one of our campuses. And so also what we did to compile the data, we took the data from the students who actually had completed 75% of the coursework and who took the state assessment. And you see on our end of course science assessment, the adjusted completion rate is 100%. We tested 5 out of 5 kids controlling those variables. When you look at the math assessment, we're supposed to test 36 kids, and we tested 33 students, which ended our adjusted participation rate of 91%. That's no longer applicable. And so just know that we recognize the accreditation standard. We recognize the standard that's set by the state and the feds. And once again, we do not feel like this standard was written to penalize small schools that have 1 or 2 uncontrollable circumstances that's outside the school's control to be penalized for not meeting that threshold. And so when we look and see where we have 93% and 94% of students tested, we're appealing because we want to be an advocate for our staff and our teachers, our principals that work relentlessly to make sure that we have those 40 and 50% increases in our participation rate. In closing, I feel like we have a strong participation plan. We've continued to work with the state on that participation plan. I guess I can go to the extent to say I feel like after working with the state 2 years, we have a solid plan. And that's why you've seen our schools at 95 or above, and the ones that don't make the mark, that land around 93% and 94%. Is because of those uncontrollable circumstances.
Thank you. So from the department, we are recommending that Premier High School online only remain in accredited cited status for 1 additional year. Through that status, we will continue to provide support and work with them on their action plan to reach the goal of 95% tested.
Check and see if we've got questions.
One clarification, so when you say the circumstances out of your control really boils down to the 8 students noted. in the
That is
justification
correct,
slide.
and just to credit the department has adjusted the testing sessions this year. That way, writing is not totally separate window, but we're a highly mobile school, and students sometimes are coming in later because we're taking all students, we're taking a lot of students who have not been enrolled in school, and so getting those students onboarded, we're not turning students away just because we started state assessments. However, as you can see from 6 students, we're penalized by enrolling those students to give them opportunity to earn credit towards graduation because they're not participating in the assessment window that's already been closed by the state.
Right. So it's difficult, given the context of our prior case, the decision we made, when you compare it to these these numbers and the circumstances behind those numbers.
And I will add one point of clarification. The writing window, yes, there was an original window at the beginning of that was in March for this year only because we had to field test. But there was also an additional window inside of the larger window where students were able to take their writing assessment if they had missed it in March. To his point, there could have been students that enrolled after that as well. There is an appeals process inside of our assessment corrections where schools are able to tell us reasons why certain students weren't able to test, and in some cases we are able to remove them from their population.
So these 6 did go through that process, and it was determined that they should not be removed from the numbers, that they should be included.
Yeah, I would have to go back and look at the exact 6 students that he's referencing, if there was documentation provided, or if we were able to remove them or not. I would have to look at that, but we do that.
Another question. The one student that was incarcerated with a non-traditional setting like this, are they unenrolled after 10 days, 10 consecutive absent days? I wonder if that's students shouldn't have been unenrolled. And then with the other, I think the number set at 95% to offer a cushion for those circumstances like that. My thought is if those 6 students truly had an opportunity to take that test, then we stay at cited. If those 6 were really enrolled after all windows were closed, then they shouldn't be cited. That's going to be enough to push them to 95% or and above, right? So I almost need more information on those 6. What are your
What's the total number of students that you have in your high school? What are we? Because earlier when you showed the numbers, you were saying like 50 students, 14 students. What's the number of
Premier High
students
School
would you
online
say?
last year we served right under 300 students.
Okay, and so in your algebra and geometry courses, 50, I was confused between, there was 50 students taking algebra, but 70% of them hadn't completed the course. And so you thought only like 14 should have taken the test. So so your cohort of a grade level of students is about 50 taking a course at a time. Is that what?
Yes, that sounds accurate.
Okay. So for the board, the department is always going to come with a recommendation of a cited status for anybody that falls below 95%. That's just clear cut for us. When you get into a small school district and you see that they're missing it by, in essence, for 93% in a small district, that's 1 or 2 students that they're missing it by. This is not a heartbreak or a heartburn for us if this board today decides not to cite this district, okay? I will say, though, in the presentation, there were some things that made my eyebrows go, we need to look at that or do some more education around that, figuring out where we are on this competency-based piece, when it's time to test kids, when it's not, making sure that they understand the portal for being able to say, hey, this kid shouldn't have tested or not tested, or it shouldn't be counted against us. We have things in place for that. I think there's probably still some education and partnership that we need to provide to them, which we can do. But when you look at a district that's just that close, again, this is not, if you guys don't go with the recommendation, that's okay, all right? We're always going to come if somebody's below 95%, because that's the standards that we've set for accreditation, all right? But this is where you guys have some discretion.
That's very helpful as we differentiate between the two cases.
Yes.
And I'll just offer, for those of you that are new, I think it was Fayetteville last year that we took off of citation because of like 2 students, and there were just circumstances beyond their control. So it has been done before.
And I noticed they're not back here.
And they
this
are
year.
not back this year. So sometimes life just works
Hopefully I
itself
won't see
out.
you next year.
So, what is the status of the school with other standards? Are you cited for any other standard violation?
No, this is the only one.
Dr. Moore, did you have any questions?
No, not at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Henderson? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll need a motion then.
I would move that we remove the cited recommendation.
Second.
It's been a motion that we remove the site recommendation. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank y'all.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Just a question, is it worth evaluating the standards to have a different standard for these situations?
Promulgating different rules.
Yeah, so when you look at like Graduate Arkansas, the one previously, so their charter is a charter for like an alternative learning environment. So they don't get an A to F grade. So our state law does already differentiate. But because they are a high school within the state, they are expected to meet standards for accreditation that are set. 95% is a federal law that we have to meet in testing kids. And so that's where we've set the standard for the state. I will say that bringing districts who didn't have 95% tested was not something that we used to do. We added it to the standards for accreditation around COVID time. And if you remember, right after COVID, we had a very large group that didn't meet 95%, and we asked you guys to waive all of those, right? And so this is fairly new as far as bringing districts who don't meet that 95%. I will say, with Graduate Arkansas, they made a significant increase from 20% to 50%. I feel like they have an aggressive plan that next year, I think that they'll make another jump. Premier went from the 80s up into like right there at 1 or 2 kids. So I feel like the attention we're bringing to it is worthy. But I think you guys made a good recommendation today, and congratulations to you for the work that you do.
Thank
You want to take a break? We'll go to consent. Because that's all of action. Yeah, because that would end the action agenda, correct? And then we could then move into consent, and then she could leave in between. Does that work? So that's, you want to take a break?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll take a 10-minute break.
I thought we needed to take a roll.
Oh, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Are y'all ready back here? Okay. Do we have any new business today?
Sorry. We didn't realize we were back in session.
New business? Okay. We had no questions on the consent agenda or nothing that was pulled. So we'll need a motion to either approve or accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Henderson makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Lisa. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. Next, we're into reports. If I can find my page. We're at the board reports.
You can jump to that one.
Who's first? Sorry. Ms. Keener, were you
Is
ready
it-
to?
Yes, I was just looking, who's first?
Sorry, I
It's
had
me.
to find my place here.
Okay. If we could pull up the, oh, look at mine with the clicker. Okay, thanks. Okay. Just to kind of update you guys on what we have been busy doing in the Committee on Early Learning. And I'm going to kind of go backwards just a little bit, but meaning that I'm going to talk about the LEARNS Act for just a heartbeat. So Governor Sanders, when the LEARNS Act was passed, what was included in there was a unified early childhood care and education. And we'll say that term a lot, unified, but what does that mean? And I think this report is our very first glimpse at what that means and how this can be really helpful. And we're so excited about it. I'm going to jump to, is it these on the side? Okay.
Ms. Keener, do you want to tell us who's on your committee?
Oh, sure. Gosh, I hope I don't forget anybody, but yes. Ms. Gina Dickey, she works with A-State Childhood Services and is just an expert in all things early childhood. We have a representative from a private school in Northwest Arkansas, Cole Lester, from Shiloh Christian. She is also an early childhood expert and represents both the faith-based community and schools, early childhood centers within a school, within more of a larger K-12 system. We have John Chadwell, excuse me, I wanted to get his name right. He serves on the Economic Development Commission in Jackson County, so he represents the communities and larger businesses. Senator Jane English is new to the board. She has always been a big advocate for early childhood and didn't hesitate when I asked her, specifically with legislation and things going through. She's a great resource. Faye Dismuke out of Washita Child Enrichment Center in, remind me of the city, Camden, I believe. Runs a 6-star center down there, and it is phenomenal. She is a whiz with grants and making, shoestring budgets, turning it into gold. So she's phenomenal. Let's see, that's 5. Let me think who else. Morgan Warbington. She works on the governor's staff. Used to be the education policy director. She's now moved on to bigger and better things, but still is serving. She's also the mother of 2 young children in childcare. I shouldn't say childcare, one. She just had a brand new baby in November, I believe, who joins her every day at the office, and that's phenomenal. So having a representative from the governor's office as well as a brand new mom is just fabulous. Let's see, who else am I forgetting? Jackie Govan, who runs the Head Start coalitions. We've got Head Start representatives. And I feel like I'm missing, we have a family home child care, Shaylin Lane, who runs a 6-star family home child care program that's nationally accredited. Similar there, it's just remarkable what she does, and we're thrilled to have a representative from Family Home Child Care. Anybody else feel like I'm missing somebody? If I've no, I should have had. I could pull a list up, but it might take me just as long to find that tab in my computer. So going from memory was probably faster. Yeah, and we specifically chose each stakeholder based on the stakeholder list that was written into Learn. So it was very strategic in making sure that everybody was represented. And then we've added a few extras as well. So this unified early childhood care and education system, sort of bringing everybody into one department and division was critical, especially under the leadership of Secretary Oliva, who has been such a wonderful advocate for getting that implemented. Anyway, let's dig in. So I'm only going to go over just a few pieces. It's a lengthy report, and I want to just hit some highlights and some opportunities. So I'm going to start, let's see, right here. So this page is what I mean when I say we are now positioned in a better spot than we've been in a long time. Being able to bring all these numbers together. School readiness assistance is our new phrasing for child care assistance from the CCDF grant that we get from the federal government. Arkansas Better Chance has long been with the department, I shouldn't say long, but it's been with the Department of Ed, which meant that those two were separate until the LEARNS Act. Head Start, Early Head Start is a federal grant that goes directly to private providers. Bringing Jackie and her office into the Department of Ed now means that they're also with us. The one piece of data we're missing is the one piece that didn't come over in the LEARNS Act. And that shows you right there how important it was to get everybody in the same house. EIDT is the early intervention day treatment. It is through Medicaid, so it is so heavily regulated through Medicaid that it really needed to stay in DHS. It is not going to be ignored by us in the subcommittee. It's certainly a piece of the early childhood world. And we are working closely with the secretary over there to try to get that data and to get some communication so that we can have a full glimpse on a single page of the funding and the children that are being supported. So this is huge. We're thrilled to see that. In fact, I just Monday was invited to visit with advocates in Tennessee. They are considering making the same move, and they're scared. Understandably so. There are hiccups in any transition. But after hearing some of the stories in Arkansas and seeing the success and seeing how streamlined things can become, they're much more excited. Their biggest fear in doing this in moving it into the Department of Ed is push down, and I've spoken about that too. I don't want 3-year-olds learning the way first graders do, and it needs to be developmentally appropriate. So ensuring them that can happen and all these wonderful things can happen as well was a fun opportunity. And kind of getting to brag on us over here in Arkansas. So having this information in one singular page is huge. It's going to give us an understanding of how money can move and shift and ways that we can improve. Next, I wanted to look at some access numbers. Let's see. No, let me go back. I think I had it down as page 11, but now I don't know where the numbers are. Sorry. Now I'm way off. I'm so sorry, y'all. That's why I shouldn't be given the clicker. Dang, and now I'm off the whole presentation. I'll just go off the cuff if you're fine. If you would like to flip in your page, on page 11, we looked at the number of providers by site type. Oh, look at you doing it for me. That's amazing. Thank you. On page 11, the number of providers by site type. One of the numbers that I want you to pay attention to is the family home child care. So in the early 2000s, we had over 900. We're now down to just 204. That is alarming to us. This is not the slide that matches. It may be slide 11, but it's not the slide that matches. It'll say site provider by site type, I think, something like that. License, yes, right there. So if you look, licensed and registered family care home, in the last year, those numbers have continued to drop. One of the things that we're doing is looking into the why in some of these things. So we know this, what we see up here, is just the tip of the iceberg. We had to look into, okay, why are family home child care not getting licensed? Why are they not engaging with us? Why are there fewer of them out there? One of the things that we believe is happening is that our licensing is not designed for them and for sort of non-traditional schools, Montessori, nature, things like that. So over the last year and a half, we have engaged with Pillars group, which is evaluating our licensing and helping us rework that. Again, getting all these numbers in the same place is what enabled us to kind of dig into the numbers so we can dig into the why so we can eventually find solutions. The next page I'd like you to go to says 23 on here, but it is, talks about the site type and their quality rating. So you'll see, that's it, site type by quality rating. Oh, there, I don't want to mess it up again. In that, I want you to look specifically at that EIDT number. Based on these numbers, 93% of our EIDT centers are in the 1 to 3 star range. Now, EIDT works with our most vulnerable populations, those with diagnosed delays, those that need that extra support. That's of concern to me. And I mentioned it's not in our unified, but we are going to pay attention to that. That's definitely a larger discussion for another time, but it is on our radar, so I just wanted to point that out to y'all as well. Next, if you'll look at the context on page, for me it says page 18, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the workforce. Let's look at workforce data. This is an opportunity as well. We don't have enough data to truly understand our workforce. One of the things that we also know, and this was a hard pill for me to swallow, I'm very institutionalized. I love a good degree, I love a good certification, but we know that that does not directly correlate to student outcomes. We also know that we cannot pay early childhood teachers in our current system for a doctorate, a master's, maybe even a 4-year degree. It is unreasonable for us to ask every early childhood teacher to go and spend a fortune getting these degrees and then to make sometimes minimum wage. So we've got to start looking at workforce and compensation based on what we know to be lead to positive student outcomes. So we're looking into ways that we can offer bonuses and compensation for those that are showing positive interactions. The other thing with workforce data, our professional development registry right now does track teachers and their license, their certifications, but it is not a great measure of it. For instance, I'm in there 3 times because of 3 different emails. So it's counting me 3 times. There are, instead of correcting, or it's just messy data. It's a little foggy. So that's an opportunity, something we're going to work on. Lastly, I want to look at the context page. Let's see if I can find that. There we go. Shoot, I did it again. How do you go backwards? Oh, there we go. Okay, so in context, that very first bullet, more children are served now than before using our CCDF funding. So the very first thing that the subcommittee dug into was the CCDF grant. There are a lot of federal requirements, federal regulations. But there are also a lot of levers and slides and switches that Arkansas can turn off or turn on or move. And we dug into all those different things that can shift. And because of those decisions, because the board approved them, we are now serving more than 2,600 more students than we were previously. This is more than we have served since 2018. This is huge. That's more families working. That's more kids in care. It's an increase of 17% just from the last year alone. Now, what that does mean is that we're out of money. We're now beginning to use a wait list. And that can be disheartening because a wait list gives the optics of children not being served. But guess what? They weren't being served anyway. in fact 2,600 that could have been, were not being served. So I'm thrilled that we are now maximizing the grant that we've been given here in Arkansas, despite what the optics of a wait list might bring. So we're celebrating that. It also gives us a sense of urgency. We have kids on a wait list. We have kids that are ready to be served. We have programs that are ready to serve them. And it gives us a sense of urgency in finding that money and shifting those funds around from adults to more children. So I'm excited about that as well. I guess that's about it for now. I could go on for days, but I won't stand any further between you and lunch. So thank you. I appreciate your time. Yes, of course.
Okay,
I'm so excited. Somebody cares.
I mean, it's very basically, so don't get super excited. Okay, when we were going back to the children served by the quality rating, and you were talking about, look at the EIDT and how 95% were in the 1 to 3. What are we looking at in the levels?
That's
Like,
a great
why is
question.
that a big?
Well, and that is
concern to you?
something that we're going to dig into later. You know, Jacob talks about building a house and its systems. Foundation is accreditation standards. In early childhood, it's licensing. So we're working on the licensing. From there, we'll work on these other pieces. Quality rating is going to be one of those other pieces. So currently, our quality rating and improvement system, you go in and you get a snapshot of a program, and that program is given essentially a grade, a rating. 1 star is basically licensed. 2 stars going to be a little bit above that. 3 star a little bit above that. We go all the way to 6 stars. So right now, in writing, high quality is 3 to 6 stars. I disagree with that. In my opinion, it should be 5 to 6 stars. There should be a mid-quality and a low quality. But I also understand that it is economically, level 3 is the most profitable because of ratios, because of what tuition you can bring in versus how much you have to pay workforce. So we've got to dig into that and find a better way. In the meantime, programs are choosing to stay at level 3 because it's going to cost them too much to be high quality, and they can't make up for it. However, like I said with the IDT, they are funded differently. They are better funded, so I'd like to hold them to a higher standard, and I think more of them should be in the higher quality ratings.
Do the centers number concern you as well?
Yes, but I also understand because of that, it's just a complicated, complex situation right now. And yeah, I'd love everybody to be at 6 stars, but these are private businesses too. Not everybody wants to run at a 6-star level, but I do believe that every child should have the opportunity to attend a 6-star if their family so chooses. So a lot of them don't have that choice, and that's not fair to our kids.
So what are some of the factors in the quality rating just generally that makes a difference in the 1 to 3 or 4 or 5?
Tanya, you probably speak to this a lot better. Ratios is one of them, but I'm going to let her.
Yeah, let me talk about that one for a minute. It's a great question. So the current system is we use 2 national tools. One's the Environment Rating Scale. It was developed out of Chapel Hill in North Carolina, so it's very research-based heavy. It looks at the environment, Mr. Bragg. It really focuses on what's in that environment. It's not a bad tool. It was the only tool for a very, very long time across the nation. But the LEARNS Act calls for us to use a new tool that's more predictive of child outcomes. And so we're using CLASS. We're doing a pilot with a tool called CLASS, another national tool developed out of Virginia. And a lot of states and communities are using this tool. So CLASS is more narrow, and it's focused on teacher-child interactions. It's focused on what's happening in that classroom. And in the report, you'll see data about some of that pilot. I think we had 182 programs in cohorts 1 and 2. And our scores are really good because we have a long history of doing quality with the former tool, but it's starting to get more predictive of child outcomes. But it also tells us areas, as Ms. Keener's pointed out, of improvement that we can do, like instructional support, for example, is a lower score in class, typical of the first implementation for that tool, like a lot of states, and Head Start, for example, who uses that. That was the lowest score for them. But it tells us we need to push our professional development into that area so that we can support instructional support.
I forgot one thing that I absolutely love. It's my favorite.
Question too.
Oh, good. Okay, so if you'll look on page 10 in your packet, there's a slide there with some really pretty colors and boxes. And that is our very first glimpse at those class domain scores. So each domain is something different, whether it's instructional strategies or positive climate, things like that. And I want you to look at where we fell. Now, to be fair to Arkansas, these numbers are going to be higher than we expect for the entirety of the state. This was a voluntary pilot-based program, so those that engaged were those that were excited to engage. So most likely these are the ones doing a really good job and saying, come assess us. So we do expect for these scores once we implement it to go down. But you'll also see two very clear opportunities here. Right now with professional development, we're doing a bit of reactionary. Hey, I hear this is a problem, let's create something here. I noticed that teacher welfare, since COVID is down, let's do something here. And instead we need to be more proactive, but we didn't really understand what was happening in the classrooms. This class assessment tells us exactly what's happening and exactly where PD should be focused. So I'm super excited about using this and a very prescriptive guide for how we will use professional development dollars. So perhaps we can even shift more money back down to kids.
On your quality rating schools page, or that page where it talks about schools, I was just looking to see who was in the 4 to 5 to 6 level. Or does that also include private?
Yes, it does. So Tennessee, for instance, has a requirement that if you are licensed, you must participate in this quality rating system, in their quality rating system. Arkansas does not. So for a long time, my previous school did not engage in QRS. They were like, we're doing fine on our own. We don't really need to engage with the state. And for our data, it is critical that we understand the landscape, the child counts. So we're trying to encourage more schools, though they don't have to participate. Okay. It is required if you accept public funds, but a lot of programs don't. Okay. In fact, I think it's just a little under half. So it's a huge chunk of our services.
And I think that's kind of the flip too that we're being pushed to do is create a system in which it incentivizes folks to want to be a part of it, right? So even when you look at the K-12 between public schools and private schools, you know, incentivizing private schools and public schools to want to do something and be in the same group, whether that's professional development, whether it's teacher training, giving people opportunities, but not necessarily starting to dictate to the private world on how they do their everyday business, right? Same thing in this world. Private providers and public schools have been working in this space for a long time, and there's a lot of lessons to learn from this space for K-12, but I also think there's some lessons in K-12 that we need to figure out, like how do we open that up more so it's not so separate.
And you had a question?
No, I think that was answered.
Oh, okay, great.
Very good report.
Well,
Thank you so
y'all.
much.
I'm just so excited that we're starting to understand this and move forward. It's certainly we are in a position now to make some real change, and always my gratitude. I say this often, but you know, Stacy's very, very involved in this and in the weeds, like I am, and I can do that in one area. Stacy's able to do it in all the areas. I don't know how, but yes, she is phenomenal. So thank you, and thank you, Tanya, for your help along the way.
Well, I appreciate you bringing more of this focus to our board. I think that's really important, and you've been able to do that, and I appreciate you very much for that. Yeah. Okay, does anyone else have a board report? I know you do. Sarah, did you have a report this time? Sarah, do you have a report this time, a board report, by any chance?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Henderson, did you have a report this time?
I do not.
Okay. Glad you were both able to join us today. All right. Mr. McClaskin, did I say that right?
Close enough.
We know it's you, right?
That's why my kids call me Coach Mac, because they can't get it right. No,
So
it's
say
fine.
it for us.
McCaslin.
You can bar Smith anytime.
Just start off, it feels It feels like it's only been a couple of weeks since I spoke with all of you because I've been that busy, but in reality it's been over 2 months. But just glad to be back here. Just to start off, right before Christmas, I had the honor to deliver the commencement, the fall commencement to SAU graduate students. As somebody who was on the 6-year plan to a bachelor's, delivering a commencement speech was never on my radar nor on my bucket list. But very thankful to the Mulerider family and Dr. Connie Wilson down there and Dr. Guevara for putting it on my bucket list and allowing me to mark it off. Was truly an honorable experience for me. So very thankful for that. Then just a couple of weeks later, I was back in Magnolia speaking to a bunch of great students at the Educators Rising State Conference. These are students that are in pre-educator programs. You see the young ladies right there on the left with state officers for the student organization. We talk a lot about being day one ready. After speaking with those 3 high school students, I believe they would probably be day one ready the day after they graduate. Just a very impressive group. Even just last week at CTE Day, meeting state officers there, and then I spoke to the DECA State Conference earlier this week. It's so refreshing to see students who have a path and have a dream and a plan. And I encourage you to attend as many of those state conferences as you can because you really get to interact with those students. It really fills our hearts with hope again. And you see the difference that's being made on a daily basis. Then the big trip in January, of course, national championship game. It was a week-long event during Atlanta. That's my buddy, Mark Lauer. He's the Ohio State Teacher of the Year who just happens to teach video production as well. So on day one, we were just like that all the way a year ago. But then you throw on the fact he's an Ohio State grad, Ohio State fan. It was a really awesome experience for him. It was cool for me to be right there in experience with him. But you know, we've all been to the events and on-field recognition events at sporting events. Sometimes you pay attention, sometimes you don't. So I was wondering how this would go over. You couldn't see this at home, but this was right before the national anthem if you were watching. And they lined all of us on the 10-yard line on the field. And this is as everything's prepping for the national anthem. And I was fully prepared for, 3/4 of the stadium not to be paying attention. There's 70,000 people gave us a standing ovation. And just an amazing experience for all of us and really hit home. I don't know if there was a dry eye out of the entire cohort, but a very special night. CTE Day at the Capitol, which you watched our video on the other day. And then some personal news for me that I'm excited to share with you. Recently, it was announced I was named to the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a learning program that's facilitated by the Clinton Library, the Bush 43 Library, the Bush 41 Library, as well as LBJ's library. And this is the 10th cohort, the 10th year that they've been doing it. But their goal is to just to teach leadership through the lens of their administrations. And so it's an opportunity for us. We're going to be able to learn from President Bush, President Clinton, as well as members of all 4 administrations. Here in a couple of weeks, we'll be in Dallas. We'll get to hear from President Bush, and then we'll be back here in March at the library as well. Really neat opportunity, but what I'm most excited about is how we're able to bring what we've learned back and apply it into our own communities. Each of us, like I said, there's 57 of us. I'm the only teacher. So we're talking about CEOs of nonprofits, all sectors covered. But each of us we're required to have a presidential project that we're working on throughout the program. And it's a project that we're required to implement into our own communities for civic good. And so you heard Ross mention earlier about work-based learning opportunities. My project is based on creating work-based learning opportunities for students in rural parts of our state. It's one thing to be in Central Arkansas or Northwest Arkansas where it's easy to, I'm not saying it's easy, but there's more ability to form partnerships with industry. Well, in some of our communities, the school might be the only main industry. But that doesn't mean we can't form partnerships with local government, with city government, with county government, local businesses to create some learning opportunities for our students. So that's what my project will be based on. I'm excited to come back and implement it in my own community, and hopefully we can scale it out to be regional and even across the state. Thank you.
Do we have any public comments? Courtney, by any chance, do we have any public comments? Or Mary? No. Okay. I guess this meeting is.
Nope, we've got, she's gonna do the commissioner's report
Oh,
for
I
a
did not-
legislative update.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. He thought he was gonna do that for us later.
Sorry. We're expecting as much enthusiasm, right?
Well, and Secretary Leva apologizes for not being here. I'm sure all of you know we're right in the heat of the legislative session, and he is up at the Capitol representing and doing his magic. So nothing to report on his behalf, but I did want to take a few minutes just to kind of talk to you all about the legislative session. Before I dive into that, though, I was going to recognize, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, Ken Bragg, and I know he's been very involved as well, and Dr. Arnold has been very involved in attendance, and so if there's anything you all wanted to share before I got started.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend Secretary Oliva for his presentation before the Joint House and Senate Education Committee recently. He about the NAEP scores. I don't know if you could have painted a clearer picture of where we are, why we are where we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. It was just he was a well-prepared, just remarkable presentation. And I know that some of those legislators that did not support the LEARNS Act, I think were impressed with what the LEARNS Act is doing and going to do. And I just want to officially commend him for that presentation. So.
Yeah, he would appreciate that.
Well, I thought it was wonderful, and I know Mary shared that with us, so I hope all of us have had a chance to look at it. I'd love to have his PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, we can make that available.
Yeah, because it's definitely, I agree, Mr. Bragg.
It should be required viewing for all public school.
He'll never be accused of sugarcoating, that's for sure.
Is it on YouTube or on the state website, maybe?
I mean, I think it's recorded because I went back and watched it later, so it's somewhere.
Yeah, as a public meeting, I believe they do record them and keep them maintained on there, but we can
You
definitely
can go to the
email that
legislative
you.
website and look up the committee history that day, and it'll be on there.
ADE website, though, it's wonderful. But anyways, thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
Dr. Arnold, did you want
I
to
want
add?
to echo that and also add that my perception of the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee is that they get it and that they're supportive and that they're working hard on our behalf.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Again, I think most of you know the session started last month. We kind of started off the first day with the governor giving her State of the State address and setting forth what some of her priorities are. She definitely expressed her commitment to higher education and increasing access for all students to advanced opportunities, for accelerated learning opportunities, and for making it easier, removing some of those barriers that might be in place. And so I think you will definitely see her legislative priorities come out very soon and get more information about that. She also made mention of making summer EBT, so like some of the free meal programs, more accessible and continuing those, the free lunch and breakfast programs, making those financially sustainable. And she's done that by making available some of the medical marijuana funds to these programs. And in fact, Senator Dismay filed, I'm going to look it up here real quick, Senate Bill 59 recently, and it has made its way through the Senate and at least through House Education Committee. so that every student in public school has available to them a free breakfast. It's the same breakfast that everyone else gets, so there's no singling anyone out. But even if they don't qualify for the free or reduced lunch, they're going to have breakfast available to them. Several educators testified at committee, about a student can't learn if the sounds in their stomach are louder than the teacher, and how important it is to make sure that students are there and that we're meeting even just those basic needs. We provide them a computer and pencil and paper. It was important to provide that breakfast to them as well so that they can have the nutrition and energy they need to be there and learn. So that was something I know that was very important to her. She also pointed out in her State of the State address her continued commitment to no cell phones in schools. I know some of you attended and most of you have heard, she did some presentations with Jonathan Haidt, the author of The Anxious Generation, and the dangers and the impact of cell phones and screen time on students. And so working along with Senator Tyler Dees and Representative John Eubanks, they also filed Senate Bill 142, the Bell to Bell No Cell Act, which would prohibit the use of cell phones in K-12 public schools. It doesn't mean that kids can't have them, they just need to be inaccessible. So whether that's in a backpack, a locker, a pouch, that's completely up to the school district. We just want to make sure that kids are focused on learning and not being distracted by their phones during instructional time. So those were some of the priorities that the governor set out. What I handed out to you all is just kind of a very high-level summary of what has been filed so far. Again, this does not go into detail. As of a couple of days ago, only 2 education-related bills have gone through the whole process, meaning they've passed the House, they've passed the Senate, and they were signed by the governor and are now enacted. So one of those had to do with tuition waivers for National Guard soldiers and airmen. Currently, they already could get tuition assistance, tuition waivers to attend public colleges and universities. Well, now that extends to post-secondary certificates or credentials. The governor has, of course, also made it known about her commitment to workforce and increasing our workforce and making sure that we're supporting that as much as we are post-secondary education. So there was that expansion of that tuition waiver program. There was also Act 25, which is a merger between the University of Arkansas and East Arkansas Community College. Most of our community colleges already fall under one of the 2 university systems, University of Arkansas or Arkansas State University. So this just brings East Arkansas College under that UA umbrella. On the next slide starts the list of other bills that have been filed that concern K-12 education. Again, I did not go into any of the details. This is just to give you an idea of the number of bills that have already been filed. Even though we're only a little over a month in, we expect to still see a lot more. And it can cover anything from, you'll see school start date to standards to mental health, teacher contracts, employee contracts, literacy tutoring grants. If you have questions about any of these, you can easily access everything on the legislative website, or you can reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions, or to Mary, and she can get through. I'm also going to throw Ken out there because I know he is being very actively involved in keeping up with these, and so if you just have questions about, well, what does this actually do? After all of this is over, of course, we always provide a summary for school districts and for you all of these are all the bills that passed and these are all the new changes that are going to occur in education. But this is just to give you an idea of what has been filed so far. One more that I do want to point out is Senate Bill 206. We worked with Representative Burks and Senator Kroll to increase the amount of our literacy tutoring grants. That was something that was created by the LEARNS Act, and we made $500 available to some of our lowest performing students so that they could get tutoring assistance. We saw a great use of those, but not as much as we had anticipated, and we had funds left over, so we increased that amount to $1,500. $500 was a great start, and students were able to get tutoring, but with $1,500, they can continue that tutoring, and more students can access that and hopefully help increase their academic performance. On the very last slide is a few just last bills that deal with higher education, even though those don't impact you directly. Just thought you might want to see that there, again, are a few, because we track everything from early pre-K to higher education, post-secondary education, and workforce. And so if you have any questions about any of these whatsoever, we're happy to answer any questions. But that's all I had to present to you today.
Cradle to career, thank you.
That's right, cradle to career. That's what Jacob always says.
Would athletics be involved in any of these, or is that like a separate issue? Because I know there's like 3 bills for Arkansas athletics, but I didn't know whether those would be on here or not.
Mm-hmm. I think there are a few I know that got included. So like there was one about coaches and athletics personnel and their access to locker rooms and where students might be. That was House Bill 1215.
I can circle back. I'm trying to like refresh my email because I can't get the bill numbers, but it was basically about athletic transfers between schools, school districts, and then from public to private. I didn't know if that would fall in this realm or not.
It probably is something. If it was filed in the last 2 days, it probably didn't make the list. Okay. But I will continue to keep you guys updated. And so, again, this was as of the 11th, and things change every 5 minutes around here. But we'll continue to keep you updated on, again, bills that are being filed that impact education. They're not all going to pass. Lots of things get filed because we didn't include everything on here that's been filed. A lot of the times bills get filed that don't ever even make it to the committee for discussion. Sometimes people file things and then they change their mind and don't run it. Or, for whatever reason, they just end up not making it to the House or the Senate. And so didn't want to overwhelm you with them, but that is one that probably is going to make our record. If it has to do with a K-12 institution, a higher ed institution, or an early pre-K program, we're probably tracking it in some way.
I'll find you the things.
Yeah,
I was just
absolutely.
curious if that would come on or not.
Yeah.
It's out there, but I checked with Lance yesterday because looking for it, and it hasn't been presented yet.
Oh, it hasn't? Okay.
Can you update us on the 4-day, 5-day?
There has not been any legislation filed on school calendars yet.
Okay. Do you see it coming?
I anticipate, there's been a lot of discussion around that, and we've had some communication with legislators I know that are very interested in that, so I definitely anticipate something. We just haven't seen anything filed yet.
Yeah, we're starting to get emails on it.
I would imagine so. I know we are as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
job, Chair.
Someone make a motion to close the meeting?
Move to adjourn. Second.
Thank you.
Sarah, bye, Randy.
And I think you guys are meeting at the
Bye,
next
you
one's
all.
at
Thank you,
12:30,
Kathy.
right? They've got lunch for you, and then they're gonna go, you guys know that 12:30, right?
Well, and that's why I was curious, because I know it included public schools.